Welcome to Shakeshero, the podcast that bridges the gap between you and all things Shakespeare. I'm Chloe Baldwin, our resident Shakespeare nerd and professional actor who believes that, when done well, Shakespeare can be accessible and relevant to anyone.
I'm Paul Stafford, our skeptical outsider who's going to decide for himself if he thinks it's true. And today we're going to be breaking down Midsummer Night's Dream, a 2014 filmed play with director, our fucking queen, Julie Taymor.
Julie!
So, this one was super interesting. I'm glad we found it.
I know.
It was everything that we loved about her movies, all the dreamlike and quirky.
It was wacky.
Like she did it. They did it on stage too. It was great.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of simple choices, a lot of beautiful choices, a lot of shit that I'm like, that's cost some money. I was like,
yeah.
Every time it happened, we were like, budget.
We haven't actually said anything about it since we finished watching it, and I'm glad to hear that you liked it because it was weird, and I was worried it was going to be too weird.
I did like it, but I liked it in different ways than our the other stuff we've done. So
I agree.
I'm excited to start talking about it.
Me too.
Yeah. Today we have a very special episode, though. We have a special guest. We have a wonderful actor, a musician, a friend of our hearts, and a friend of the show, Adam Wesley Brown.
Woo! Bow, bow, bow.
Hello, fellow Shakespeare nerds. I'm also a Julie Taymor fan, so when you sent me this, I was like, yeah, this is going to be all right.
Yes.
This will be watchable.
Had you seen this one before?
I had not. I did not know that this even existed.
Oh my God.
Man, yeah. I was just like looking at different ones, and because this is again one of the. I mean, we've done a few now, but I'm going through the ones that like I've heard of before, or like the most popular ones, and so I was just looking at different like options for this, and then this one was one of the higher.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. They don't really do Midsummer a lot, so it's your options are pretty limited.
Dude, I'm already like kind of baffled, or wonder how it was pulled off when it was first written. It's like how do you depict all of this crazy shit? Like again, sometimes when we see a good one, I'm like, how would you do it any other way? Like this one, like it calls for so much visually. I'm like, how the fuck did they pull it off?
You know what's so funny? After watching
somebody
this,
just wrote a sign that just says fairy, like a shirt that just said fairy on it.
Why not? I had this weird feeling after we watched it where I was like, now I want to see a really low budget Midsummer, because one of the things that struck you most, and I'm sure we'll get into it more, but like was this really simple moment that you said aloud where somebody put a pillow to the side of one of the lovers' head to make him fall asleep and then lowered him to the ground with his head on the pillow, which was just so simple.
There's a lot of fairies that we understand that they're fairies, and they're and then when they cast people, they cast this like 63-year-old, or she was 57 at the time, like contortionist as Puck. And she has like these weird
her
long
elbows.
Her elbows.
Her elbows, though.
Her elbows.
And so like we get used to that, and they're understood that they're like invisible to the normal humans all the time. So like they could just run around the stage, and it worked. And then, one time she's supposed to make him fall asleep. She just grabbed one of the fucking pillows and just hit him on the side of the head. He's like, I'm fucking tired.
And then slowly he just goes to the ground. It was awesome. And just the fact that struck you really hard and was one of the cheapest things they did. I was like, damn, like I want it all to be like that.
Which
now.
is saying
exciting.
something in a Broadway Julie
God.
Taymor production. That's one of the cheapest things.
Yes, because she directed Lion King, and literally you could see it in that play.
Yeah. The deer scene was hilarious.
The deer, and then there was even like a lion in the play within the play at the end
funny.
that looked like Lion King.
I forgot to look it up because I thought Oberon was in Lion King, but I could be wrong.
Well, but to get back to the point that led us down this road, to kind of accredit myself as a Shakespeare nerd, if you like put a gun to my head and you're like, one person or one thing you could go back in time to go do, and you could do it once, I would want to go back to the Globe in the height of Shakespeare's day and watch a production. I don't really care of what. It would be cool to see something like this, but I don't know.
What if you were like disappointed as fuck?
Oh my God.
That would be amazing.
It kind of would.
What if it was a back room, but like not even good? Like everybody like had just got the lines a couple days before, and they were just like saying in order.
I don't know, man.
Everybody was loud as fuck, like not even listening, and just like
not listening to each other.
It was like an open mic night, or like an open mic like comedy night, basically, of like that's the energy in the room, just depressing.
Well, that is, I mean, from all reports, that is basically what the Groundlings were. Because you have to think about it like this. Like a massive portion of Shakespeare's audiences were not only unschooled, but illiterate completely.
Yeah.
So for them, one of the great things about Shakespeare being able to use and kind of retool myths, legends, and old stories is that a lot of his audience were just completely unfamiliar
unfamiliar
with that entire set. So but these people are illiterate, and they pay the least amount of money and stand for 2, 3, 4 hours to see this.
Dude.
And pee.
Dude, people are selling food and drink like a ball game, and they're shouting at the actors. I have no doubt it's like the most rowdy Friday, Saturday night, Boys Town,
yes,
open mic club with the
absolutely
2-for-1 shot night. And you're doing you're Othello killing Desdemona of this really heightened emotional scene, and some dude's just like taking a wee on the front of the stage.
It's like speaking of appealing to the groundlings, it's like I can totally see that like on this like lowbrow humor, just like, oh, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this one fairy make the other fairy fuck a donkey. Like, that is such a lowbrow, like raunchy humor.
It's like a low blow, y'all.
I definitely describe this play as like raunchy as one of the like the higher descriptors I'd put on this play.
I totally agree.
And that's actually, and we'll have to get into it because I think that's one of the areas where this show was very successful and also very unsuccessful. It's funny. We tried to do this episode previously. We watched like the 1993 or not 99 movie. I think it was 99
with Stanley Tucci, and they definitely like lower. I don't know. I don't remember it feeling that like cringy or that like ew like for like the donkey moment with Bottom. When Bottom got turned into a dog, they just kind of like woke up in the morning and they didn't really like allude to the sex as much. This one was just like, sir, I made her fuck a donkey, and overall I was like, oh snap, bro, this shit was fucking hilarious. like it was very like schoolboy, but I actually thought that was more appropriate. Like it fit more. I'm not saying like I was pining to see that more, but like it seemed to fit more with what they were doing.
Speak for yourself, Paul.
I agree with you, Paul. Yeah. I also want to take a second just to say like part of the reason we have Adam on this episode is because Midsummer is your favorite Shakespeare play, right?
It's.
Don't fucking backstep right now. You called it the perfect play.
I'm gonna say this. Yes, I think that like. Bands or albums or whatever, like your favorite can often change and shift.
Yeah.
But I find myself constantly coming back to Midsummer as, yes, in a very large sense, a perfect play. You have, if you go by the classic Aristotelian arc of a story, there are 3 storylines that start in turmoil. There is rising action, there is conflict, there is a climax, and then there is falling action and a resolution.
For all 3 of these.
Like picture perfect. And it is amazing. I think you can trace even, modern day comedy. I'm rewatching Community right now.
Us too.
You know what I mean? That show's so good, but you can.
I was gonna say Abed, like of just like understanding all of the tropes of all movies and stories, and just like nailing it. Like before they even had definitions, like he like nailed all these picture perfectly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's. I mean, you can trace a lot of comedy to its origin here, which again, Shakespeare blatantly stole from and adapted and did a bunch. So it goes even farther back, but like you can pinpoint Midsummer and a lot of humor and a lot of story arcs afterwards that come right back to Demetrius and Helena and Bottom and the whole mess.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's funny is I like this play in a very like different way than I've liked the other ones. Like there's been Taming of the Shrew and like Titus.
Oh, did you guys do Taming of the Shrew?
Yeah.
We did. Talk about a play that has not aged well.
Oh my god, dude! Wait. I thought the same thing.
We think it's largely misunderstood based on the movie we saw.
Wait, I know that face because that's my face, but I get it. But the one that we saw, it was very clear that at the end when Katerina is being like,
you haven't listened to our episode?
I was about to say now I'm showing my hand. I haven't listened to that episode yet.
No, but literally at the end, Katerina is like. That speech that she has at the end, that's total bullshit, and the whole audience is like, fuck this. Like, that's what we think Shakespeare was nodding to. Or at the very least, Zeffirelli was like, this is bullshit. So it's like breaking the fourth wall in that last speech to be like, oh, you think this is what women should do in response
well,
to
there's a whole
that
episode
kind of
on
abuse?
it. So if they want,
I mean, I was going to say,
but I just wanted to tell you. Yeah. Give me the cliff notes.
I mean, that's going to tie into, I'm sure, into our conversation here, Chloe, because some of the things you and I have discussed as we've been in a show together and we've spent time together is we talk a lot about Shakespeare's female characters and the way he writes them, especially for the time when women could not be on stage. So I'm interested to hear your takes on the women in this play and what they represent, how they carry themselves, all that kind of stuff.
Dope. Yeah. No, I'm excited to talk about it because I've played Titania before, and Helena has always been on my bucket list. So I especially in this play, I've always been thinking a lot about, especially those two very kind of
you've never
powerful.
played Helena?
Not yet.
You're like 7'3". Like, how have
I
you never
know,
played
that's
Helena?
what I keep saying. And that's one of the things that I always think about, too, with these women that Shakespeare writes as quote-unquote very tall.
And you're insane, so
I mean, it's perfect. Yeah, it all checks out. But, like, all of these tall women that Shakespeare writes is great for me, being a modern tall woman, but it's because they were all played by dudes, which is so funny. It's like, oh, that woman is very tall. It's
I
like,
didn't realize that a character trait of Helena was tall.
And same with Rosalind, too.
It's interesting because in this production, that is much less pronounced than in other shows.
Yeah.
Which
It doesn't seem to matter.
I mean, like, let's get into that part. But
Okay.
I got a question for you, Chloe, because we're both actors and are big Shakespeare nerds and have been in a lot of Shakespeare plays.
Yeah.
I'll just be over here. I won't be.
Paul, why don't you give us another round of drinks? Anyway, like, how many times have you been in this show, and what characters have you played?
That's a great question. I've been in the show once, and this is fascinating, actually. I was in Midsummer, Jersey, which is an adaptation of this show where...
My favorite one.
I know, where all of the fairies speak pretty much straight up Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. The lovers speak a little bit more Jersey, and the mechanicals are totally just like Jerseyed up.
Just 5 Snookies.
Basically, it's like Snooky Bottom and Snooky the Joiner and Snooky...
The situation snout.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
Paul, don't have that look on your
and I
face.
know it sounds obscene, but it was a fucking blast. It was great. Like when at the part where Bottom comes into the bower, I was telling Paul they played Sexy and I Know It for me to seduce this donkey.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so and that was like back in high school. It was one of my first Shakespeare plays I was ever in, and like made me fall even more in love with it, even though it was like, not totally Shakespeare. It was interesting.
That sounds like, to me, like, man, sometimes I'll be, when we watch these, especially the filmed plays, I'll be like falling in love with Shakespeare like a little bit, or I'm also just being like, Shakespeare, what are you doing to me? But also like falling in love with theater specifically, because like this, but I mean like in a mutually exclusive way with Shakespeare. Like sometimes like there's like a choice that's being made, and it's like a really awesome point, and it's just somebody being so creative with the theater toolkit to take this play that may or may not be good or like all right, and just but like doing like a really awesome choice, and I'm like that. Some stuff that made me like theater more.
Yeah.
And we happen to be watching a Shakespeare play.
Well, you referenced this earlier, and maybe we should say something about it. This is our second attempt at this episode.
Yeah, we had a technical
difficulties, and we watched the 90, 98, 99 version with Kevin Kline and Christian Bale and all those people. Michelle Pfeiffer and all that stuff. And now
everybody had bikes and no one was riding.
Oh boy. That I would like a cutting of our dissection of the bike use in that movie. Anyway, but I'm interested because the point you're making of a love of theater. It is such a different thing to see a movie version of it, however successful or unsuccessful that adaptation is, versus a stage adaptation. And I think that's so cool because if there's nothing else that I took away from the viewing of this production, way much more so than the filmed version, is that you do get that electricity from the performances, from the audience. There's something, and again, this is probably going back to the origin of why theater is so important and why it happens. It's because you cannot replicate it. You can have a big set in Hollywood and have Christian Bale and Callista Flockhart chasing each other on bikes that they're not riding. Anyway, you can have that, and I still think there were very successful moments in that version, whereas I think overall this filmed production was much more successful. And anyway, I'm just I'm rambling, but I'm excited to hear what your take of the difference of the two is.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't spend too much time analyzing like how I liked one part, just mostly just like the overall story and how I took it in. But one thing I did say is, as we were watching this, I was like, God, man, I'm so glad I like seen this before. Otherwise, I'd be so lost a lot of the time.
Really?
Fuck yeah, dude. Just like all like the fairies talking about shit and hatching plans and like doing stuff. Like I followed the lovers' quarrel and I followed like the main gist of the play, and I would have like gotten through it, but there has been times I would have been lost. I definitely, I'm just saying I enjoyed it a lot more that I already knew what was happening.
Well, also the spectacle of it, I think, is a very different thing.
Yeah, and this was like, I was like a little worried before this episode too. I was like, God damn it, Chloe picked one and it's great, but it's like 30% spectacle.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be hard to like talk about.
The minute you add Julie Taymor to her production,
oh yes. Your budget triples.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
we did scream budget like a few times.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into the chronology a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. Can I say one quick thing?
Oh, fine.
I just want to say, I love Shakespeare. Every once in a while, I have this moment where I'm like, do I just love Shakespeare because it inspires so much creativity in me and people when they are creating it, because it requires it in some ways. And I think that might be a contributing factor. I don't think it's all of it. I don't think it's even half of it. But it's interesting that, it's like we talk about with art. If you put it in a box, sometimes it makes you have to be more creative. Mm-hmm. And because there are so many logistical things with Shakespeare that we have to make sure we get things across, make sure that even though we're using ed and eth at the end of words, that it still makes sense to the viewer. And sometimes I think that the creative choices that people make, like when they're putting it on in a theater, just, are a huge part about what I love about watching Shakespeare productions and being part of them.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's also cool because Shakespeare has been around for so long, and because it's in the public domain. You as an artist, or you and your team, or your theater company, or your movie production company, or whatever, who's going to tackle one of these stories, you have complete artistic freedom to do it however you want. You can't do that these days with anything.
That's another like great point. There's not a lot of like stuff that's good and ubiquitous that other people like know what it is, because like again we already been a part of projects with the fact that everybody who knew all the lines and was familiar with the characters was a huge crutch for us to be able to pull it off. And so like that really fosters like an independent or like storefront or like lower budget version of something that is like really high quality writing. So like I never actually quite thought about it like that. That's fascinating.
I hadn't either, I don't think.
I mean, I wonder, this is kind of going on in my own head right now, but it's like, I think that obviously we as artists are reflections of the times around us and the zeitgeist of what the consumer wants and what the artist wants to produce, et cetera, et cetera. But, it could possibly be, in one sense, a shift of the way that people wrote things. Mm-hmm. Shakespeare wrote for just they needed work. They needed plays to be done because they would do shows in reps. So they're constantly, today's a comedy, tomorrow's a history, tonight's a tragedy, yada, yada.
Tragedy tomorrow, comedy tonight.
So, like, he's
hilarious.
He's writing.
Totally got it.
Whereas, like, you can't do what we do with Shakespeare with like The Departed. Scorsese did The Departed, and that's kind of the way that story is going to be told. Period. You know
I
what
know
I mean?
exactly what you mean.
You're pointing to theater in general,
Well, I'm talking about more specifically Shakespeare, in that I think it may be a difference in here we are in 2020 as opposed to 1590 something whatever, where you're writing for a completely different audience and a completely different way that audiences ingest the output that you have put out. That was going to sound so cool.
Deep.
It was going to be so cool.
I liked it. I also liked when you used the word zeitgeist. I was like, yes.
Well, listen.
It was great.
I don't often do podcasts, so I'm going to get all of my $10 vocabulary words out.
Adam has a little patch on his shirt that says genius.
Amazing detective / genius.
All right. Let's get into it. All right. So we open with like a bunch of like music going on, there's a bunch of lights going on, and we open on just like Puck. I didn't know it was Puck. It's like, I forgot her name, but we looked up her age because we were just like, she's just so agile. But this is 57-year-old woman at the time of this
Her name
taping.
is Catherine Hunter.
Yeah, and she's like,
she's dope.
She's such a dope Puck because she does almost look like, somebody who's kind of like just very odd and interesting because they're like her limbs are just elbows.
It's her elbows,
so
man.
long.
Yeah.
Very ape-like proportions of like how long.
And
her
the way she
arms
held
are.
her whole shoulder girdle too, I was like, whoa. She's like a marionette.
I guess she's like a contortionist or something. Yeah. She was bending her body in ways that like looked really weird, but it made for the perfect like fairy creature. Because that's how I imagine how the play is supposed to be introduced. Like, oh, there's like a magic element of it, and she, you know, has like this opening.
It was the opening movement piece that we've been saying is dope to get us into a Shakespeare play.
Yeah. Like if you had any question of if this is a Julie Taymor piece, within 23
here's
seconds.
Your sign.
Yeah, within 23 seconds of lights up, like you're like, oh right. Lion King, I remember.
True, yeah.
Yeah, and then like, did
Julie do this?
And those construct and like and then again the zany jazz comes back from Titus. Like she just like has like the same track that she uses for everything.
She's like, listen, I've got exclusive rights to this shit, and we're putting it in everything.
Stop drilling, you hit oil.
Like the band is playing, and she's like, zanier, like with a whip.
More tuba.
It's like I'm calling it zany jazz. It's really kind of like a weird kind of like polka, kind of gypsy kind of feel.
Yeah.
I'm about to like say something that's like probably politically incorrect, but like that's what it feels like. It's very like zany. It's the best way I could describe it. And like these construction workers come and they like attach a bunch of stuff to like, I can't exactly remember, and I'm also gonna do myself a disservice trying to describe every fucking scene in this like very visual play.
And abstract too.
But like they like come and they attach a bunch of like hoisting shit to the sheet that the play is in that's on the stage, and as well as Puck, and they like lift up this big sheet, and this sheet comes in like a lot of times in the play because it's like it's used as like the sky, and they shine a bunch of lights on it, and they do lightning with it, but it's also used as like a bed floor. Like they use one big white sheet for like so many things.
Wait, you know what I just realized? What you're doing right now, I almost just turned to Adam and went, he sounds crazy. Because what you're describing right now sounds like a dream. It sounds like you're describing a dream.
That's a good point.
Right?
Because it makes no sense.
Exactly.
So I'm probably gonna try. I'm not gonna try to like describe anything visual unless like I really have to, because like it's so much of this play.
Well, I think she introduces in that first movement piece a couple of the themes that get reused over and over again, and I think it's worth taking a minute to explain it. Like this I don't know 100-yard giant white sheet that becomes most of the sets of the play.
Yeah.
I think that's
in the most creative, fucking awesome ways.
Yeah, man.
And like people, like I said, it becomes the sky at one point, and they do like a bunch of light cues to make it look like lightning in the clouds,
like the title card for the show.
It's the bed, yeah, exactly. So it gets lifted up to the cloud in the beginning, and then like it's projected onto it Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's like, what the fuck, dude?
It was kind of magical.
There's like a big pillow fight sometime in the play, and like the white sheet is on the bottom, like it's like a big bed, and like there are all these pillows all over it. It's like, it's everything.
Yeah,
it's so cool. I'm like, how do they keep that shit stain free?
I was wondering about that too. And Titania's costume, I was like, oh man.
It's probably lighting. It's probably dirty as fuck if you gave it a wash of daylight.
Well, I also, I mean, now this has come.
There's a bunch of little kids running all over. It's probably sticky. Lollipop stuck in that shit.
But I will say, this is also coming from being married to someone who works on the other side of the theater. Like, especially when you're working with. So this production was with theater for new audiences in New York. I mean, you are working at the top of your field with industry professionals who are working at the top of their chosen fields. So like keeping a semi-white costume in pristine shape for shows, honestly, like I have no doubt
that
whatsoever that they are able to pull that off. Damn. 8 shows a week. It looks as crisp and as clean as it. Like look at the body paint on the ferries when we get to that bit. Like
perfect.
They have teams of people for just Oberon for just a time. Yeah. I'm like
they have like meticulous body paint that is cover all the way to around their eye, and like because they're mostly naked.
It's amazing.
And so the way this was filmed was like they did Julius Caesar, which was at our other episode
Donmar
Warehouse was that they went ahead and just took footage during the rehearsal, and they cut that in with the live production, and so they got a bunch of tons of close-ups, and you could see all the detail of the body paint.
Yeah,
and it is so good, and the edit was fucking seamless. So.
Yeah. Props to them for both of those things.
Well, it was cool to watch it.
They gave it at the time it was due.
Yeah.
Watch it with my wife, who's a costume design assistant, because
Did she like it?
yeah, she's. And it's funny because we've both been in the theater for so long. We've had a lot of conversation, and I've told you guys outside of the podcast many times how funny it is that she's very much like if I never work on another Midsummer ever again, it's too soon.
I fucking believe it, dude.
Yeah. When we watched the '98 version, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch this. Do you want to watch this with me?" And the look in her face was like, "Oh, never mind. Absolutely not. Don't worry about it." Like, she's told me that she gets PTSD from hearing "Now fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on a page." Like her spine begins to crawl.
That's the first line of the play.
The first line of the play.
And it's just so funny whenever I hear you say that.
But yeah, she sat down and watched this with me because from the get-go, the production qualities of this.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's Julie Taymor, it's New York, it's
Yeah.
theater for new audiences. Like,
Right.
it's going to be insane.
But even, and it's not just that they threw money at it either. Like, because I think we've been talking about budget, but I think, like, it felt very intentional. And even the things that I wasn't consciously understanding or consciously being like, this means that, which means that, I felt like I got it in a certain way. It was almost kind of primal in some ways, it felt like. Did you guys get that impression too? Like something kind of primal about it?
Yes. Well, I mean, I got that. I'm not sure. Like, it's a little vague, but I mean, like, the words that I was thinking, like, I could easily latch on to that word for sure.
Raunchy feels like it goes with primal a little bit, or it can.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and it was. Things were reused and in really clever ways, like you'd see in theater trying to like hold down a budget. Like, that those like bamboo poles were used for like everything.
I would say, actually, as far as it goes, saying all of those things, that it's Julie Taymor, that it's theater for new audience, that it's New York. With all of that being said, I mean, like, look at Lion King. That is a epic story that incorporates so much. Relatively speaking, this Midsummer, because I've seen stuff where the lovers all end up covered in mud. The fairies have different costumes every scene.
What?
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you.
I think those would be bad choices.
Well, I mean, everyone has its own merit.
If they did it, it's bad. No, I'm kidding.
It's not Julie Taymor's production.
So I hate it.
But yeah, relatively speaking, like, it was cool to see you got pillows, a giant sheet, bamboo sticks, and some papers and some fluttery papers on a stick. And that's kind of like the extent of your props and set.
That and the light cues did it all.
Yeah, but I will say that with all the light and sound stuff that was incorporated, that was one thing Kara and I talked about. It was like, the tech for this show.
So
must have been
and that's what we were talking about, because again, they got all of the shots and all the light matched perfectly. So that means they were done with tech once they started filming all of these like close-up shots, and they were like not just. Like, again, as we talk about filmed plays, a lot of times they get like 4 or 5 angles so they can have coverage, and there's like a baseball game, somebody zooming in on somebody, and then later on they just have freedom to edit how they will. This was shot like it was a movie. Like they had somebody with like with a shoulder rig, like jumping in between characters as they were doing their and so the blocking was so precise that they could seamlessly cut that between the live show with a real audience there, and it didn't matter at all. And so they were done with rehearsals. They were ready to open. They were like, wait, now we have to spend 2 weeks actually filming it before we open. Like they didn't spare no expense.
But I think that in the editing of it, I think they did a good job. There are certain scenes in a production of Midsummer that if you're going to film it and do a filmed production, you got to do it live.
Do it all.
Like the lovers' quarrel felt live to me. Like there were scenes, like the more intimate talking moments felt, yes, you can definitely tell they edited and got super close-ups. But I want to applaud whoever put this edit together, because they kept those exciting, long, drawn-out, tension-building moments of the play that do not translate if you try to edit it and cut it and stuff like that. Whereas if you're doing a live performance, you got to do the entire lovers' quarrel scene, because the payoff at the end of it when they finally leave is everybody collectively, you could feel it sitting on my couch, that everybody in the audience and me watching it, we all went, oh, wow. Wow, what a journey that was.
Together. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. That's fascinating. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective.
I don't think they I agree with you, but like I feel like I could see what the editor was trying to do. All the edit really did was allow you to see a couple of angles when it was really potent that you wouldn't have been able to see from the theater, or you wouldn't have gotten from the far away stuff. They did a lot of close-ups on Oberon and Titania during their like, you know, soliloquies, and like when they could just sat there and just like, or when you needed to see the expression on someone's face very clearly. But most of it, they stayed in the wide pretty conservatively.
Yeah.
It's so funny where this conversation is going. We're not even talking. We're talking about like the production. We're not even talking about like the actual play.
Well, I do want to say one more thing before we continue on, because we started this whole.
That could be your motto, Adam.
I know, right? The whole kick that's led us here is that we started talking about the actress who played Puck and doing some research about her. It is amazing the career that she's had.
Oh my God!
I'm so glad you did research. I should have done more.
For someone, you know, in an image-based industry who's not I don't even know how to say this. Like, she's not the typical actor that you'd see, quote unquote, whatever that means. But like this person who is a very short, a thin, gaunt person, but very dynamic on stage, clearly has a handle on the language and a comfortability on stage that is you can't teach. That's definitely something in her. And if you look at her resume, name a play and a classical play and a Shakespeare play and a character, and she's played it.
Whoa!
She's done Cleopatra. She's done Richard III. She's done Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah.
Like, this woman has done it all. And by the end of the show, I was sitting there watching when she was doing the, you know, give me your hands and we be friends speech, and I was just going, no, more. Just do it again.
Yeah,
just say more speeches.
And
I loved her.
Everything she's done, and it's all so physical too.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to see someone who is so based in both text and vocals and physicality, and it like, especially in this too, it felt like she combined them in such a storm of a character, which was really fun.
And speaking of her age, you could feel the age, but it was not a hindrance. If anything, she used it as a color to the performance.
Yeah, like, she's immortal. It made sense to me. It's so funny.
The physicality for her and how she interacted with everybody was great. Like, I loved it, and I also loved how they brought her back at the end to be
Phyllis Drake.
Yeah,
that was awesome. That was the
choice.
best choice I've ever seen for Phyllis Drake. I was like, fuck
and
yes.
they even suggested that all the kids. So Chloe, at the very end of the play, there is like, you know, there's a play within a play. So all the audience comes out and they use. We haven't talked about the child like cast, which is
my God.
Children are 80% of this cast. And the play within a play needs, like, you know, people in the court. So they just use those same kids who were playing all these fairies, like the Lost Boys basically, and they came to fill out the play. And so, like, usually there's like
the audience for the play.
Yeah, exactly, the audience for the play within the play. So there's a philostrate, which, you know, like describes to the king which one, and we have this, you know, we have these whole players who are our B plot. And then, like, the philostrate says something, and then all the kids together go, yes, so suggesting that all the fairy kids are now the fairies in the play.
Yeah.
Like, they're just disguised as humans.
Exactly.
Basically.
And Chloe pointed out, she was like, that's really smart. Get those kids out of makeup before curtains. Get them out of there before bedtime.
No, we'll clean them up, and then we can just shoo them out the door.
Get them out.
Yeah, there's a ton of makeup. Yeah, so yeah, oh my God, the kids were so good.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised.
On so many levels, like, they were so specific and good when they had lines. So many of them were so physical, like doing backbends.
Oh.
I was like, did they go to a circus school?
They straight up went to a gymnastics gym and was just like, everybody line up. We're all doing auditions.
I mean, but they became part. They were used all over the show. They became part of the set. They were the fairies.
They were the forest. So,
yeah.
like, when they were doing, like, the brush for the bamboo, they would just, like, so these bamboo sticks were, like, a huge part of the set, and they used them for all kinds of shit. But then when they were, like, the forest, the kids would basically just hold the bamboo sticks in the way of the actors, and the actors would shoo the bamboo out of the way.
It was awesome.
And the kids would just, like, or like when the Donkey Kong running scene when they were running out and they were jumping over logs, the kids would just line up and roll, and the actors would jump over them, and actors were running in place.
It was awesome.
And they would just like line up again. It was like, it must have been so fun, dude.
Yeah.
Everything about that was just so, like,
I mean, if there's one thing that this production definitely knocked completely out of the park, you know, home run, it is the visualizations. I mean, no surprise with Julie Taymor.
Yeah.
But, like, the way that she used the bodies in the space, she used the space, there was no production element, costume, sound, lighting, props, actors, anything that went unused and unutilized to its fullest potential.
Yeah, for the story.
Basically,
Yeah.
Julie said, like, okay, I have, like, basically 20 kids that are part of this cast. what I see is 20 very intelligent, autonomous set pieces that can move when I tell them to move.
Right.
Like, which is a genius.
Awesome. And the other thing too is like, I've never seen a production of Midsummer that really leaned into, we have a forest and the forest is a character practically as much as this one, because the forest really is a character, especially in this, like especially with Puck like sending them off down different wild goose chases and different paths. Like in that sense, the forest really becomes like a part of the plot more so than any of the other more so I think than any of the other forest plays that Shakespeare has.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We're gonna just talk about their production at like every moment. But for the sake of somebody in my shoes who haven't seen this, I'm gonna like try to give it like a little bit of a linear thing.
Yeah.
Scene 1.
Oh no!
For the layman listening to this episode, they're like, I don't know. They spent 30 minutes talking about the 20 kids. And shit. I don't really know what the play's about.
Or even like someone who's read the play is like, the kids.
So I mean, we don't have to like spend a ton of time on it, but just to like have a through line of what's going on. So scene 1, we're in, I guess, Italy. The only, like, the last movie we watched was like, it was like Italy. This one was just like the only Italian reference is Bottom, who's basically Super Mario. Like,
I mean, yeah, he's like Boston Italian.
He's an Italian plumber.
Yeah.
He's fucking Super Mario.
Yeah, there's definitely a resemblance there.
But that's nothing else is like references Italy. Right. Everything is Athenian and something else.
Well, I think that was a decision by that 98, 99 movie to set it and hit the nail on the head so many times about it being in Italy.
That's so funny.
It's set in Athens. It's in Greece. There's nothing Italian about it.
Yeah.
Shakespeare wrote plenty of Italian things, but this one is very...
Not one of them.
Not one of those
Why did that movie do that?
They just really wanted it.
I don't know, man. The 90s were a different time,
they were.
But anyway, so we got... okay. I swear I can get these names. So we got Hermia, who loves... Lysander, and we have Dimitri, who also loves Hermia.
There's one more syllable in that name.
Dimitri?
Us. Demetrius.
Oh, it's Demetrius. Sorry.
He's
Dimitri
Greek.
is
He's Greek,
all of us.
not Russian.
Got it. Dimitri, love her.
Dimitri loves this woman.
Oh, now I want a Russian Midsummer. That sounds weird. There's a bear in it. Oh, we're doing that. That sounds great.
Demetrius loves, or we are more led to believe, like wants. He's a frat boy, and he wants Hermia, and so apparently Hermia's dad, because he owns her in the way he claims and the way the law works, says like, you got to marry Demetrius. He went to fucking Duke. Lysander went to state. You can't marry that trash. Like it's basically what's going on right now.
And this version, it was super
accurate. I never would have thought about it like that.
It's so accurate. In this version too, it was awesome because Demetrius looked like a little fucking hippie.
He did.
I was like, you little hippie, and I feel like so often they're like
Lysander.
I'm so sorry. Lysander looked like a little fucking hippie.
Yeah.
Demetrius looked like a frat boy.
Yeah.
Which was great. He should always be a frat boy. But I feel like so often when I see Midsummer, it's like they both look like they choose the two most handsome actors they can find that have the perfect haircut and look super preppy, and they're like, you two, Demetrius, Lysander, check. And I love that they made Lysander like less desirable for a dad,
or just less of like the norm, like of at least he's not clean cut, which is something you could give him.
Exactly. He was still handsome. Let me be clear.
Oh yeah, there was not unattractive people in this production. Period.
No.
But that's one of to go ahead and pull out the textual reference card for the first time in this episode.
You only get 3.
I'm just kidding.
1,000.
You only get 3 every 10 minutes. Adam.
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
it. But like I think that was a great visual companion to the text, where Demetrius is clearly her father's choice. He is the straight cut, Joe College, gonna go out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Lysander, as in the speech that Aegeus gives Theseus explaining what the situation is, he says, Lysander, you have won my daughter's affection because you, John Cusack, stand beneath her window and blast wham at her or whatever, or what is it? Careless Whisper. That's what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you blast that you've given her treats, tokens of your affection. He called it sweet meat or something.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it made
Wow,
sense
that's a hell of a euphemism.
that like Lysander is the longer-haired, artistic type, whereas Demetrius is the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, quote unquote, more desirable from a parent's perspective, which I thought was a neat visual companion.
Oh,
He
totally
can't get a
agree.
job with that tattoo. So
Are the scissors in your house broken?
So anyway, so that's like the situation, and so they defer to who is like the mayor of the town or equivalent political figure, for his decision, and the mayor is trying to be like, like I want to be a nice guy, but I also want to I got to follow the law. So my basically position makes me give you three options: you can marry Demetrius, like your father said, you can be a nun, or you could die. And then and Hippolyta, who we find out who is his wife, like the whole thing is also, I forgot, like all these like fucking construction people who are coming in there, like that ties in because the whole village is like, or the whole city is getting ready for something, and who they're getting ready for is the mayor person and Hippolyta's marriage.
Yes.
And so, what happened in the movie that I didn't
person, I love it. No,
I know, because it's true.
That's right. No, you're right.
when we were doing 12th night last night, I kept calling Olivia the queen, and she was like, no, but I mean, who cares?
But
Like,
I almost like that better. Like she definitely has the most power in that play. She's the queen of 12th night at the very least, right?
So, Mayor Daddy comes in.
Daddy. Paul thinks he's daddy.
And so, but you had said something about like he was marrying Hippolyta, like she's like a foreign royal, and so they made her like this big, tall, beautiful black woman.
She was so
and,
cool.
amongst all these other, like white Greek or like characters. So like it also like hit home that like, oh, he's bringing this bride from a foreign land.
Right.
Not that necessarily ties into the story, but like it made it clear. I'm glad that they did it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And her costumes
she has
were
some guns.
amazing.
I love,
oh my God.
They totally.
Did you say she has Michelle Obama arms?
Yeah.
You did say that.
Dude, there was everybody in that play was fit.
Yeah.
Everybody in that
All
play
the
was fit.
women had guns, dude. I loved it.
Yeah.
Everybody
you
had
gotta
guns.
to be in that play, I feel like. That was awesome.
Listen,
'Cause it
if
was
Julie
so
Taymor
physical.
comes over and is like, listen, I'm going to put you in my play, I'll be like, great.
They start doing push-ups on the
Yeah,
spot.
immediately.
Leave the meeting with Julie Taymor, hit my LA Fitness, hire
Yes.
a trainer, let's get to work.
Totally.
Just pull out her protein shake out of nowhere. So that happens, and so we get like the plight of our main characters, but then quickly we get out of this love triangle, we get the square, and after this, and we meet Helena, and Helena loves Demetrius. For why? We don't know, but she does, and she
So
will not be
much.
deterred. And so she is like hopelessly in love with him, even though he shows like zero reciprocation
At the time.
at the time.
He used
Don't get me.
to.
I want to talk about fucking Demetrius, who's still in the sunken place from Get Out and is living in a hell, and how this play's actually a horror play. But we'll get there. We will get there.
I have to say this was one of my issues with this production, and I think it's a trap that a lot of productions of Midsummer fall into, is that the beginning of the play has such dire stakes to it. A man comes in and says, "This is my daughter, and if she doesn't marry who I want her to marry, she's going to die." And I am going to be the one that essentially...
Her dad was in on her death.
You know what I mean?
She didn't do what he wanted.
And I feel like because we all know Midsummer so well, because we know that give this old exposition scene 5 minutes, and then we'll get to the funny mechanicals and the fairies, and then it'll be all hilarity, and it all ends. It's all happy ending. I know. I feel like we do ourselves a disservice if you do not give that scenario enough weight, and I don't think that they did in this production.
Interesting. You know what's funny?
There. I mean, like the lines are there, and they definitely. But I feel like the emphasis on the scene work of listen. This is the one of the few scenes where we gotta focus on the text. We gotta tell this story as truthfully as we can. There are no flying fairies in this scene or nothing.
Interesting. It felt like it had a lot of weight to me. It's surprising that you want to have more. What would you rather have happen? Like maybe something more physical. Maybe she like like she got like punched in the face like in like in Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh God,
by the dad.
No, I don't know.
She really did get punched in that one.
I maybe it was just not enough weight for me personally, and any other person watching it would not feel the same. But I felt like it got it. I think this was my note on it. It felt like it got a bit glossed over for my taste.
I hear you.
Where the rest of the show really had some really great work by the actors in the circumstances and believing into what was happening. That the start of the play felt it also. It kind of felt presentational to me.
I agree.
Where the rest of the show felt very naturalistic and real.
In it. I think especially like the thing that keeps sticking out to me about that first scene in our first intro to like this world is the first fucking glance I got of Hermia. It was the one time that I didn't like the costumes in the show because she looked like a clown and it was all about her boobs. It was like we've got this clown
the whole show
collar.
was all about her boobs.
I know, but that was the only thing we saw on that costume, and I was like, her dad let her wear that? That doesn't make sense to me. And it just felt kind of ridiculous. She's in this like bubble skirt with like just her boobs and then like a weird Shakespeare collar.
It looked a little bit out of like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
And I was like, I felt immediately like I was like, I should not take this character seriously. That's what that felt like. And I was like, I feel like I have to, but I feel like I'm being told not to.
Interesting.
Which didn't help me in that.
No, maybe that's, I will say, maybe that's my own preconceived notions of the way this story should be told.
I don't know. You're not getting much of a pushback from me. I mean, like, I'm happy that I had seen this before, so I had like a little bit more of a context and I can use more of my processing power to like notice these details as opposed to just trying to understand what's happening. Mm-hmm. But that was still a lot of my processing power was trying to understand what's happening. So like, I don't know. I don't have like the text to draw from, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to personal taste, and there's also Chloe backed me up on this. This is the epitome of the old joke. How many actors does it take to change a light bulb? 10, 1 to do it, 9 to stand around and say I could do it better.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those things of watching. I go like, oh well, I could definitely give more weight to my Lysander speech if I was doing it. But this is one of the few scenes that has some serious emotional. Circumstances to it and consequences of actions. This sets the whole play in motion. So I feel like we are owed a bit more weight to it.
It's so funny. I didn't from my bird's eye view, like that tends to be the kind of way I look at a lot of things is like I see all of these data points and I find like their connection without like having to focus or like deciding to focus on any one of them too specifically, and you guys seem to be like very granular, like this moment needs all of these things. But like the way the play felt to me, like I liked a lot of these Shakespeare plays that we watched, like again like Taming or like Titus, where like it has these like really deep, the message, like the core message of the play or the theme is like something super profound to human nature, and like it resonates throughout history, past and future, and it's like amazing to see. This one felt like it was just fun. It was light. The play, all like it's, talking about it's the needs of fairies. It didn't seem like it was trying to say anything super profound that I could quite get. It just felt like it was having fun. Like it was an interesting, like, fucking fantasy. And this set it up enough for me to like get me into it, but I don't think it needed more. I
also completely agree with that. Listen. That is also Adam's own take of it. The same way that when I'm going to watch a play or a movie, the first thing, because I'm an actor and because I've gone to school for it and it's my job, like that's the first thing I'm going to see. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. The same way that watching this with my wife, who works in costumes, first thing that she's going to see and the first thing that she's going to comment on are the costumes. The scene started and the first thing she did was talk about Hermia's costume. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the first thing that I started talking about was like, well, I don't think they're putting enough emotional weight behind this one. Right. And then at the end of the day, it's one of those things of like, hey, step back.
It was fine.
Can't see the forest for the trees. It's midsummer. Like, just go ahead and have fun.
Honestly, that's kind of what's going on in my brain right now. Just like, I agree. Like all I needed to know of that is why there were stakes. But that the fact that there were 8 instead of a 10, I'm like, that's fine.
So there's a question. What is Midsummer? Is it a romantic comedy? Is it like a pastoral? Like
I mean, I feel like pretty confident saying it's a rom-com.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The audience at home can't hear me shaking my head, but I'm shaking my head, yes.
I think so too. Yeah, sorry, I was just interested in like, where does this go genre-wise? And I think it's like mostly a rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everything is pretty... Honestly, there's a lot of things, like the way it gets... And even the way that it gets, like, solved is not, like, an intricate net of cause and effect that Shakespeare has to, like, create a believable circumstance for. He just says, the fairy then does that. And then the fairy does that. And then everybody loves the right people again. Which is like I feel like
it's kind of Community.
Which is the clue that I feel like it's not, he's not being lazy, but it's like, this is just a fun thing.
Right.
I feel like, okay, wait, I'm going to keep questioning the genre thing. Because that feels like a sitcom. Like, hijinks and then we fix them.
I mean, I feel like you're
rom-com.
splitting hairs now. I mean, rom-com, sitcom.
I'm just trying to say maybe it's all of the above and maybe it's our Shakespeare genre fuck kind of thing, you know?
Wait, no, what? I mean, like, if you're trying to say it's not, I mean, are you describing it in genres in terms of today or back then?
I think today, like, I'm just trying to put it in, like, I think the reason I'm trying to do this is because I'm like, who would like this? Like, what could we liken this to? You know?
Then I would say it's half and half. There are, like, you bring in Hermia and the lovers and Helena and the love triangle and the love square and who loves who, and that's a rom-com, and it all ends up where they're married. You bring in the mechanicals who have no romantic storyline through their thing. They're just trying to do something. They're trying to put on a play, and it ends up working out to whatever degree of success or failure, but they end up doing it. So, and that's more sitcom. Mm-hmm. And then you have the fairies who live in...
I mean, I feel like the fairies are also a sitcom. I feel like maybe the fairies are more of a sitcom than...
But I don't know about,
mechanicals.
But what about the whole reason that they're there is because Titania and Oberon, lovers, are having a quarrel that ends up okay.
True, but that still feels like a sitcom.
Well,
like, that feels
I mean, she did turn Bottom into a donkey and make Titania fuck it.
Like, I feel like that's so hijinks to me. That's so, like, Community, like, oh, we fuck it up, and then we fix it by the end. And I'm not trying to, like, you know, I'm not trying to say any of this is right or wrong. I'm just trying to be like, I wonder if, you know, each of those plot lines are their own genre. I wonder, you know, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
That plot line made me think of, like, the what do you guys call them? Like, the dregs, like, the people who watch this plays.
Oh, the groundlings.
The groundlings. The dregs.
You know, if you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember that fucking comedian, Lisa Lampanelli?
Yeah.
Where she would just do the most basic, or the blacks, they got these things, and the whites, they got these things, and the Jews got things.
I do not remember this.
That was her. I mean, it was a good 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's before your time,
like,
Chloe.
So, get out of here.
For us old heads over
literally, here. That was her whole shtick, and it was like the most like I think like awful, like just one-dimensional like humor. That's what the Bottom plot line with Titania made me think about. Like, I'm just like the groundlings will love this shit. Like this is
so
for them.
Funny.
Just like,
yeah, that's actually a really smart point, because if you're doing, you know, he wrote so many plays about court life, kings, queens, princes, dukes, duchesses, all these different things, you know, high up in society people, and it's kind of a genius in for everybody else who's, you know, the rest of the other 75% of the world who's not you know, aristocracy or in the monarchy or anything like that, where they're like, oh, yeah, well, listen, I just left my pottery workshop where I've been, you know, working for 10 years, and look, there's a guy on stage making a pot. And he's wearing, like, you know, he's wearing clothes like I'm wearing. I get that. That's my in.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty
smart. That's funny, too. You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of, like, Princess Bride with, like, you know, you've got action, you've got romance, you've got comedy. Like, there's something that appeals to everybody. And I think I've always kind of thought that about Midsummer, too, where there's something that's for everyone.
And like Fred Savage in Princess Bride, I also was okay with there only being one scene of kissing.
Oh, dude, I loved the donkey mask.
Oh my god,
that was awesome!
One of the most amazing like prop / costume pieces. It was like a really, you know, like a not a realistic donkey mask, but like, you know, the proportions of the size of a donkey's head was probably about right. Put it on a man so that you could see like his eyes, and around his eyes like as much of eyes like you would see in like a Batman mask. But then he has two like levers in his hands that he's using to control the lips and the teeth of the mouth, so he could like be like a the creature shop, Jim Henson kind of situation where it's actually moving the lips as he's talking.
It was amazing.
So good.
And did you notice that it was so it was his eyes in the donkey head. It was his eyes, and it has a donkey head shape, gray fur, long snout, big ears, long mane in the back. But if you looked, the front part of the muzzle was not a donkey's mouth and nose. It was his nose and mouth.
I didn't get that.
Yeah. He even had his mustache and his soul
hilarious.
Yeah, it had his little mustache. It was so cute.
Because they brought down a human nose and mouth to the very end of a donkey head. That yes, I loved seeing the mechanics of they weren't.
Cool.
They didn't even try to hide it. They were like, yes, it's him. But it made it just that extra level of jarring. Oh, it's so weird.
And the lips were like shiny and wet and stuff like that. It
that
worked.
was weird too.
I feel like every production of Midsummer always has to. There's a couple of things that are always talked about. How are the fairies done? Mm-hmm. How's the lover squirrels done? What's the play within the play? And what does the donkey head look like?
Yes.
I feel like those are the things that are always talked about. And by far, this was one of, if not the coolest donkey heads I have ever seen.
I could not agree more. Just that practical element of it, plus going all the way with he is in the head. You see just his eyes. That's it. Both of those things.
And no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I am a terrible host. We never circled back to say what you've played in Midsummer because you've played every goddamn character. Can we do that real quick?
You're so right, Chloe. You are the worst.
I heartily disagree. I heartily disagree with that statement. It's funny. My first show when I was must have been about 8 years old in elementary school was Midsummer Night's Dream. It was the reason I fell in love with theater and Shakespeare at the same time, and I played Puck in that. It was like a 30-minute cutting with my elementary school for the Kentucky Shakespeare Festival where I'm from. And I fell in love with theater and Shakespeare at the same time, and I my wife and I always laugh because Midsummer is the show that you constantly come back to as a theater artist because it's such a hit. It's so much fun. Everybody's going to love it. And it also gives designers and actors and directors and theater companies freedom to do a whole bunch of really cool, wild stuff that you maybe not wouldn't.
It's like a playground.
But yeah, so I don't know exactly how many times I've done it, but I've played Bottom a couple of times. I've played Puck. I've played Lysander. I've played Flute. I'm working my way through. I want to hit all of them.
Titania next, yeah.
Honestly, yes, dude.
You'd be great.
Those Forgeries of Jealousy speech, get out of here.
So good.
Beautiful. Ugh.
Damn, I wish that I could see you play Bottom. I'm sure I will get to at some point.
Give it time.
Yeah.
So, to get to trudge through the plot just a little bit. So we get to meeting. I almost called her. Callista Flockhart, but Helena, who was played by Callista Flockhart in the movie we talked about, but in this production, I don't know any of the actors' names, so she's Helena. And again, when we find out that she's already friends with Hermia, and she's like, "What's up with Demetrius? He wants
what's up with your boy?
He want to get with me or what?" And he's like, "Nah." And then we also forgive me for not remembering specific order because it jumps a lot. But we also around this time we meet the players too.
Yeah, the Mechanicals.
And so the players, the Mechanicals?
Yeah, so they're called the Mechanicals because they all have these...
That's a great name. That's a good band name.
Philostrate at the end says, who are they that play a crew of Patch's rude Mechanicals? So they've always been, from that line, they've always been called the Rude Mechanicals. Oh yeah, that's a hell of a great band name.
And they all have these they're not just actors, they're not full-time actors, they're community theater kind of actors. So they have these jobs the bellows mender and they're all just these very hands-on jobs, and they're doing this for fun.
That's hilarious that they have all these hands-on jobs because they're all dressed as maintenance people.
Yeah.
One's a painter, one's a plumber, Bottom is literally dressed like Super Mario. He's an Italian plumber. And everybody else just has all these just costumes like that. It's funny. It's great.
I always love when a production will play to that because it again goes back to that idea of the groundlings watching it going, oh, well, I can't relate to a king and dealing with, geopolitical issues, but hell, I can relate to that dude who's a tailor because I'm a tailor and we're all just trying to make ends meet.
And I'm a tailor who likes theater because I'm here at the theater.
And then the tailor is a tailor on stage and is making the costumes, or you know what I mean?
I bet you actors probably didn't have the luxury of being actors. They had to have a job and then kind of do this as well.
I mean,
actually, so basically, the actors, it was their full-time gig, and they would start as kids and apprentice and then become fuller-time actors, and they weren't doing great if the theater wasn't doing great, but it was their thing. But it was definitely something, like you were saying, that the groundlings could relate to. Anybody who's coming to, pay a couple cents to see this show is probably someone who, likes theater and is enjoying it, and so that's why they're there, but, their full-time job is being a mechanic.
I worked all day mending these bellows. Here's my halfpenny. Can I go see Midsummer Night's Dream, please?
Oh my god, is this the Muppet version of all the groundlings?
But also, historically speaking...
You're like me!
Oh my goodness, he mends bellows just like I do, Mama. Anyway, but
what are you auditioning for, Adam?
Right. Oliver.
I don't know what
you guys are doing Oliver,
you
right?
You booked it, whatever it was.
But I mean, keep in mind, historically, we're also at the point when Shakespeare wrote this. We're not that far from times of actors being thought slightly better or worse than prostitutes, which were at the bottom of the social ladder. And oftentimes, if actors upset someone or upset the local gentry or were, God forbid, too good at their job and scared someone as they were playing a bad guy, they were killed, buried at the crossroads with a stake through their heart.
Like a vampire.
That's fucking insane, for one. And two, explains a ton about the last scene of this play.
Yes.
That's enough to hang us when they're worried about that?
They're like, every time something happens, they're like, like I'll be a lion and I'll roar at him. It's like, don't roar too loud. They'll think you're a real lion and they'll fucking kill us all.
Say something before where you're like, I'm a person, not a lion, and then they won't be as scared.
Yeah. That's funny. I mean, the joke still kind of works because it's just generally slapsticky or generally kind of funny, but it's way funnier with that context. So anyway, we fucking meet the love square now, not the love triangle, or it's like a triangle within a square, some kind of polygon. And we meet the players, and they're deciding that they want to put on a play because for this wedding, we were tying it all up with between Hippolyta and Mayor Daddy, they want a play, and so they're saying best play gets in, and so that's kind of the conceit of what pushes everything forward. And then Hermia and Lysander have a plan to we're just gonna run away into the woods, and then we'll be free, and we'll just go live our lives and run away so we can be married, so I don't have to be a nun or die. And
Helena's like, cool, but
chill. But yeah, so that's our conflict rolled up into a really small nutshell. How'd I do?
Yeah.
So I'm also never going to correct you on Mayor Daddy's actual name.
No,
he
never.
will always
be
never
after Titus, when we really confirmed that names don't matter, I really started to run with it.
I mean, I have no complaints on this side.
I just want that on a t-shirt or something.
Mayor Daddy and Hippolyta.
Oh God, 5 ever.
What happens next? Oh, then we finally meet the fairies. We meet Oberon, and we meet. So Puck goes to Oberon. I love Puck and Oberon's intro because again, the I forgot her name, the actress who plays Puck. She is very physical and must have spent some of her time in a circus or something. But she does what's the? I remember Dragon Ball Z when we first meet. Oh my God. What are those people? It's like a Dragon Ball Z character when they do this crazy little hey, I'm this person. They do a little pose. Oh, yeah,
I have
Puck,
just become
Puck
a layman
goes up
in
to
this
Oberon
situation.
and Oberon picks up Puck and they strike a pose for themselves.
Yeah. Well, now here's.
I'm sorry. I really hope somebody gets that Dragon Ball Z reference.
I think people
Yeah, exactly.
I really am glad that your podcast audience can't see us try to do the Dragon Ball thing. Yes.
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed for them, and I feel like this is a show for one, and I'm honored to be here.
We'll have to do some BTS footage on the Instagram or something.
Yeah, we'll have a reenactment.
But this is where I think, Taymor really gets into her own, is when she's allowed to go into that fantastical world of the fairies. And that pose to me was a perfect introduction into their relationship, because they're close. They obviously have a lot of care and love for each other, and B, they're fairies. They don't exist in the real world. Mm-hmm. So that opening pose, and then let's go even a step back to the first scene, or the first bit of that scene, where Puck is having a conversation with the first fairy. Let me tell you, as an actor who's seen the show 100 times and been in the show a number of times, the first fairy Puck scene is boring as all hell to me.
I'm so with you. You have to do something with it or it sucks.
This is the only time I've ever seen it where it was different, interesting, told the story, and had impact. So this is where we are introduced to this chorus of children that we've been talking about.
Oh yeah, I wrote down Lost Boys, acid trip scene.
Straight up,
the kids start. Yeah, they do. All the kids act as a chorus in this play. They all sing.
Yeah,
and they sing this really not atonal, but like super dissonant. And like, I've been in a choir. It is hard to sing this song. Like, just rehearsing it to do this piece, if they were just standing still, would be difficult. They did it while doing fucking flips and like crawling on the floor and like doing all the right blocking, and it was flawless. It was great. Lest we forget the point of any of all of this, of the spectacle, of the writing, of whatever, it's all about telling the story. And I think this was one of, if not the most successful moment of this production, because it included all of the Julie Taymor elements that we all wanted and love about her work, which is massive spectacle, like mind-boggling, how did they make this work kind of stuff. And they told the story. You are introduced. The point of that scene is to introduce Puck as a trickster and as Oberon's number two. Like, and I got all of that from this. For sure.
It was so cool.
Loved it.
First time I've ever seen the first fairy scene.
Wow, I got spoiled then.
Yeah. It was so cool.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
I didn't hate the movie one.
Because that was interesting. They put it in like a bar. That was fun.
Yeah, but I also like loved this one. But like I'm just like I'm it's ruined me for like
just you
apparently
wait.
all the other 100 productions.
Just you wait till you see a boring ass version of this scene. You're gonna be like, oh, that's what
hilarious.
It is. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Adam. This was probably my favorite version I've ever seen of that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually, like, when I write down stuff, I write down just like kind of impressions I'm getting alongside like just the plot points. And I wrote that, like, okay, the fairies, they were talking about Hippolyta's marriage with Mayor Daddy. So I'm like, okay, so they clearly care about the lives of humans, but like a lot of that language still is lost on me, even though I knew what was going to happen. Because I was even confused when we saw the movie last time. I'm like, are they like enemies? Because it seems like they're enemies, even though they're like married or together. And then it gets tied in with like the Indian boy subplot, which goes nowhere. So like that scene always confuses me.
I mean, that's the most flowery language scene in the whole play. The rest of the play is very back and forth. There's very traditional rhyming couplets, but it's 1 and 2 line bits that before someone else starts to talk. This is the real time, and this also I'm gonna circle back around to that point. But I was also very happy to see, because Midsummer is so often done, and because we know it so well, it's often cut. And listen, like, we can have a long discussion about what you should and shouldn't cut in Shakespeare, but it is so often that Midsummer, like, you rarely, I've only seen one completely uncut Midsummer, and it ends up being like 3.5 hours long, and there are definitely moments of it where you're like, we could speed this along.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to applaud Taymor and her team, because they kept so much of the original text in this. Stuff that you never hear.
Interesting.
That explains lines we are familiar with that otherwise doesn't make sense to me. And I'm going to if I may get super specific and super nerdy.
Please.
In that Mayor Daddy scene where he's telling her, he's giving her options. I'm not going to say the name. He's giving her the options where he's saying, you can marry Demetrius as your father wills, or you can die the death. And then he goes into a, 10 to 15 line explanation of what it's like to live as a nun, to live in single blessedness, to grow on a branch, bloom for yourself, and then die. There will never be any. And she has a line, so will I grow, so live, so die.
Yeah.
And every time it's cut, they always say, you can either marry Demetrius, die the death, or live a nun. So think about it and tell me what you think. And Hermia always says, "So will I grow, so live, so die." And
it doesn't rhyme with anything. I see what you're saying.
No, it doesn't go with anything. Like the analogy is laid out.
When I say rhyme, I mean match. Like you're like you're placing this other half of the slam dunk, but you never got a layup for it.
Yeah.
So to juxtapose my comment earlier that I didn't think that scene had the most emotional weight that it could behind it, I will say that they kept some stuff in there, and I heard some stuff in that scene for the first time in all my years with
I remember that line now that you're saying it, and I liked it. Like, there's really some stuff that I do, like, it does, like, latch on to me, and the rhyminess, well, we'll give credit. Like, it helps.
Yeah.
Me remember, like, some beautiful lines, and that was one of them. Like, it made me feel like it had some weight, because I'm like, damn, like, yeah, like that's a fucking harsh ass sentence.
Yeah. I've been thinking about what you said, especially since we watched it, about the changeling boy scene, the whole like not Hippolyta, Titania and Oberon thing, and like that being kind of hard to understand in the most flowery language of the play. And I think that like I'm thinking about what we always say about active and passive listenability. So like the idea that like, you know, anybody can walk into something and understand certain things about it. But then if you have more knowledge about it or more background, then you can understand like some more nuances or like an extra level of something. And the fact that we've been talking about this play being like there's something for everyone, I feel like that section of the play is almost like, you know, because we've talked about it and you were like, what I took away from that, changeling boy, they're fighting over him, they're lovers that are mad at each other and they're fairies. And I think that that's all you need to take away from it. And then if you're like, you know, a Shakespeare nerd, or if you're like, if you've heard this scene or seen this play
or
1,000
just
times.
a lover of language.
Yeah, then you can really dive into it, you know, either as the actor or as the audience member, and like listen to it. And there's always something a little bit new and interesting and that kind of paints a picture, if you can like really tune into it. But I think that it's one of those things where it's like, you know, for me, and this is actually a great example because you guys are both very well versed in music. Like if I'm to listen to a jazz song that like, you know, I'll be like, nice horns, and like, this is funky.
That's me listening to watching Shakespeare.
Yeah, no, exactly. and so, and I feel like, you know, but for you guys, you could be like, I don't even know what phrase would be right.
That's a 5/7 beat right now.
Yeah, and it just changed or whatever.
They just did a key change. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me that would be something that was like, you know, kind of lost, but like its effect would still kind of hit me in like a vague wash. But it's something that's like, you know, maybe like an Easter egg, or maybe something that's just a little deeper.
It's something
for a rewatch, or for people that you know.
What's the word? Oh my God, the phenomenon in like psychologically of discovery is inherently pleasing. It is a release for something, like psychologically, for you to be looking for something and then find it. Mm-hmm. So to have a play where the more you, or a painting or whatever you want to analogy where that we take this, is that the more you zoom in, the more detail there is to discover is just inherently pleasing. So that's all, you're just pinging that. Yeah,
I'm just pinging that, like, you know, even though on first watch that scene might be like, I don't know what's happening here, I guess I got the basics, let's move on. Like there is more to dig into the more times you watch it, so that when you're Adam and you've done this play 50 times, there's something that is still a little bit deeper and more complex that you can keep digging into, so it never gets boring.
I gotta be honest, it really helps me to, like, when I watch it, to be like, we try not to talk very much from the movie, but like, so we can save it for the podcast, but like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I don't know what the fuck just happened, I got A, B, and C, and you're like, that's all you need. I'm like, that helps me.
Yeah.
And that's what happens a lot.
Yeah.
It really does. And I think it points back to the point that, you know, we're trying to make with this podcast, that I'm trying to make in my life, that Backroom Shakespeare is always trying to make, that like anybody can get it. It's just about the confidence in it. You know, it's just about like is that right? Like Hamlet hates Ophelia, right? Or, whatever it is.
Or the production's ability to like get those things across, whether it be visually or just from the inflection alone or from body language or however they communicate it. Mm-hmm. But so anyway, I think I forgot to like put the overarching thing. We meet Titania and Oberon, and we are to understand that they're very powerful fairy figures, and we just need to know that they're in contention. And the reason why they're in contention is explained, but is largely irrelevant to the dynamic of our main characters, our lovers in the story. Mm-hmm. They're just fighting over a changeling boy, which is almost like it's almost like Boba Fett in Star Wars, like when he first arises. It's largely just like a side little character that has a huge deep backstory and like in relevance in the world as a whole, but very little relevance to our story right now.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot.
I mean, anytime Star Wars is brought into anything,
am I okay?
No, you were spot
on. I agree.
Okay,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
They're mad at each other. Bottom line.
I'll say because speaking on that point of Titania and Oberon and Puck and all the fairies to a lesser degree, but Oberon and Titania especially they say it in the text that they are the parents to the world. They are, essentially like Zeus and Hera, or Mother Earth and Father Sky, however you'd like to think it. So it's so often in productions, how do you, how one of the struggles is always, how do we as a production communicate the absolute raw physical and elemental power of these two beings? And this is a point where I think Julie Taymor they just are like,
you know what I love?
Boy, I wonder if Julie's going to do a good job of this. And again, the giant 100-yard sheet comes down and it's used for projection. This entire scene essentially takes place in the clouds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool. Now this goes to all of the technical aspects, all of the wonderful, wonderful production values that they were able to put into this. I felt the power of these fairies.
Agreed.
So one of the really awesome moments that I wrote when I wrote down like visceral or like animal-like was when they were in the middle of their initial kind of like debate or whatever it was, and they were circling each other like animals, and they're both of their costumes have this huge like collar, like this like rigid collar, Oberon's costume, he's a very big buff black man, and his costume is very like African seeming, like inspired,
and also like rays of the
big
sun,
wicker kind of things, like kind of like extruding off of his like collar, protruding, yeah.
Boba Fett.
And so they do this thing where like they both like flare their collars like peacocking at each other.
It's awesome.
Like animals who are posturing before they fight.
Yes.
And it felt very primal, and I was like, it was so good. Me and Chloe both were like, look at it, we love it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so great.
And then going back to the production values, I mean, the makeup on Oberon is so
it's meticulous.
Cool. It is so cool.
That beautiful sparkly man.
And the beauty of the filmed version is that they do so many close-ups and like high resolution to like let you see not only the acting, but like, like the artistry of this visual like aspect of this play. It was fucking awesome.
Could not agree more. Yes.
And then so anyway, they're fighting over the changeling boy, but what you're really getting is that they're fighting. And so I need to like also I feel like I need to ping this. A lot of the choices, so we consider like humans have motivations that we can understand, because like when we say something, I'm pointing at you, Chloe, is human. It's like you're pinging something that we can all understand at the core. Like there's some common ground that we all have to understand what this person's going through. It's important to understand, if you really want to like understand this play and not get too confused, to don't hang up on anything that the fairies are doing or why they're doing it, because they're not human. Like fairy lore in general, I know I've read other stories in fantasy and like that draw from fairy lore before this, so like that helped me a little bit to understand that, like if I would just go down the list, one, fairies are very interested in human culture and like in humans in general, but they're very much not human. They're very fickle. They like forget things really quickly. They're very mischievous. and they, and they also have this obsession with like balance. Like everything is a deal, and like if you give me this, I must give you something of equal value in return. Like,
see, so that's interesting. I would say everything that you just described makes the opposite point. That especially in this play and in this story, sometimes the fairies do the most human things.
No, I think they do the most like logical or like, and I think it's very much of their nature, but their nature
logical,
not logical. No, I mean I almost would say like, but it might be a too long of an argument. But I have it's a bigger argument than that. But I would say it's something that's like consistent with like quote unquote fairy nature as I think I understand it, and. Again, like the very much like with the deal thing, the very much like obsessed with balance and being fickle. Like I love it when Puck like goes to their camp of the players and like suddenly just like picks up their all their shit and starts using it and is very fascinated like a cat like looking around like starts smoking the cigarettes and like starts doing all the.
It's like the apes in Tarzan from Disney.
Just basically just like wanting to experience everything that a human could do. Like it's a very like a wonky carnival mirror of like a human. Anyway, it's consistent with fairy nature as I feel like I understand it, but it's very much not human. So what's your example that you were about to say about them not
or
they're doing something the most human? What are you talking about?
I mean, okay, so let's look at it like this. Oberon and Titania are literally the mother and father of the world as we know it. They are immortal beings. Time means nothing to them. They have all of human history, all of the world history before them, and all of the world history after them. And where they are in this moment, they are acting jealous. They are vindictive. They're childish. They pull very mean-spirited pranks on each other. It feels very human to me. And it's one of those things. Now, I'm kind of dovetailing into a point you're making that there is a fascination in this fairy world with humans. I think it's just very interesting that these ethereal, infinite beings have some of the most human, air quote, human qualities in the play.
That's funny. I just thought about like the replay the last 2 minutes, man. I like how I'm trying to argue like the nature of like a fictional fictional.
I mean, I was gonna say,
no, I love it.
I think this is the first time I've ever heard Oberon and Titania's actions through the course of Midsummer being called logical. That's
not logical.
No, I know.
I did misspeak there, but I did mean the only thing I meant about logical is like quantifiable is like the balance thing. And even Puck says it. He was like, if we like wrong you, then we'll fucking make it right.
Then we'll
and
make
if we
it
do
right.
it like and that was a lot of their like, Oberon was like, oh fuck, we fucked up the lover thing. Why would Oberon care about these fucking humans who don't live there very long and aren't nearly as powerful and don't even know he exists? Why would he care about making that right? Like that's very like a fairy thing to obsess over. Like
it feels like I always feel like when I think about this play, the fairies looking at the humans like a reality TV show. Maybe that's just because my first intro to this show was doing Midsummer Jersey. But
you're constantly looking, where is the situation in this scene?
I mean, that's the situation. That's my situation.
I'm also now just realizing that it's been enough time where I can only think of Snooki in the situation. I can't think of who else was in Jersey Shore.
It doesn't matter.
Different podcast.
Kylie? No, that's a Kardashian. Never mind. So,
because Oberon is mad at Titania, he was like, "Well, I'm gonna pull a prank on this bitch, and I'm gonna like do stuff because I'm mad at her because he's jealous." To your point, and he decides, and he also happens to like again like very much happenstance, like oh these worlds are just colliding, and we have Hermia and Lysander, I know names, who are going into the woods now trying to fucking, escape. And Lysander's lost, of course, because he wasn't a Boy Scout, obviously. He has no merit badges. And also Dimitri, who's running after them, looking for them. And then also Helena, who's following him because she's thirsty. She's so thirsty. And
for Dimitri.
And Dimitri.
Yeah, Dimitri.
And so like, I guess the scene that happens is like, Lysander is like, hey, we out here alone now. Let's get to it. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. And she's like, no, we gotta get married first. Otherwise, by virtue, back off, down boy. And then at the same time, Demetrius is getting followed by Helena. And I Callista Flockhart version in the movie that we watched, as opposed to this version, I thought was a lot more. It rang truer to me because she seemed like crazy. Because like again, her love for him seems ridiculous. He's saying, "I hate you, I love you, I don't want you, get away from me," and she's like, "I'll be your slave. I just want it."
Yeah.
Want it.
Honestly,
like that's all she's saying, and I don't understand. And so this actress who was playing it like super earnestly, and like I almost believed her, but then I'm like, no, this is crazy talk, and I don't think I'm looking at a crazy person. So there's something that I'm missing.
Now you mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about Demetrius's arc through this and how he ends in the sunken place, and I'm wondering if this is the place to have that conversation.
Sure,
I think so.
Well. This is one.
Okay, I'm sorry. If just for someone in my position, there's a lot of like love potions getting put in eyes in these people's plays, and so the natural love of everybody is already aligned except for Demetrius. Helena loves Demetrius. Demetrius doesn't love Helena. Lysander and Hermia both love each other. So as long as they're fine, natural, they're fine. But at the end of the play, Demetrius gets love potioned for Helena,
and it never gets fixed.
That's how it ends, and everything is supposed to be happy. But Demetrius is the only person who got magically shifted. I'm sorry, Adam. Continue.
No. That's a good explanation. I mean, like this comes down to, and it's going to come to production by production, movie by movie, however it's going to be. It depends on the story that you want to tell.
I'm imagining a shirt that says "Justice for Demetrius."
Hashtag wake Demetrius up.
Yes, that's a good one. I like that one.
Really
I like that one a lot. Wake Demetrius up.
God.
I mean, yeah. So I think it's gonna ultimately come down to what story do you want to tell about this.
Yeah.
I personally, being a
horror play.
Yeah, being a hopeless romantic, I have always read it as, because in that first scene, when they're saying, Demetrius is the one that I choose for my daughter, and as a shot back against Demetrius, Lysander says, Demetrius made love to Nidar's daughter Helena, and she, sweet lady, devoutly dotes. So there was a time when they were together. And
that D was so good.
It was
so good.
She will have no other man.
Listen.
Right. Well, but I think that's something that this production just kind of glosses over, which is okay. I mean, like it happens a good portion
Honestly,
of the time.
what would you do with that? I'm sorry,
well,
I keep interrupting.
I think this is what I think is interesting, and maybe this is coming from someone who's done and seen this play and been involved in this play for a long time. Because
too close, man.
Yeah, right. Because I want to get something out of that. I think there is more. I want to save the Demetrius plotline in this play.
Wait, you want to save Demetrius?
I want to wake Demetrius up in the right way. I think it is more interesting of a story. Now I'm getting into my personal.
Do it.
Okay,
We want it.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
I don't want to dive off.
Do it.
I love it.
I think it's
I do this all the time.
Listen, drama is at its core what we want to see in a movie, in a play, whatever. We want to see conflict. Mm-hmm. And the idea that Demetrius is just cut and dry, like, yo, we were together at one point and now it's over and that's it. Period. Done. Get away from me. And it's going to take literal magic to make me ever think otherwise. I think that is too one-dimensional, maybe even a little two-dimensional, but it's really very easy.
We need three-dimensional.
I think it is. Human emotion is
four-dimensional.
Human emotion is not that simple.
Sorry.
I want 37 dimensions.
I'm sorry.
I think it is a more interesting story to tell, and brings in conflict, brings in those sorts of things. Human emotion isn't so cut and dry. There is. We all have relationships with our exes in some way, shape, or form. Be that an actual, like, we're friends afterwards, or like they live in my head and
my memories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just because we've broken up doesn't mean that I completely cut you out of my life and I'm done and I feel nothing for you ever again. Period. That's insane. Nobody does that. So I think there's something much more interesting to be found if there is still something in Demetrius who wants to be with Helena, because that's who he actually loves.
You just like planted a seed in my brain, and like that makes so much sense. Like what if because of this, what if he feels like he had to break up with Helena because he should love Hermia for the same reasons that Hermia's father is making her marry Demetrius.
Paul, come into our web.
And now he, after being, transformed in the forest, as one might say, if this is a past story, I don't fucking know. And now he, is allowing himself to love her as he normally would. Like that veil, makes that's a huge puzzle piece that would totally fit.
The veil or like whatever constructs socially and otherwise that he feels he has to fit into by quote unquote falling in love with Hermia really stems from society and from outside forces as opposed to his own feelings, which is why I think more successful productions, at least from this perspective, for me, are when they are able to show that it's more complicated than just like, oh, he gets the magic juice shot in his eye and then now that's the way he is forever.
So being learned Shakespeare scholars as you all may be,
you heard it here.
Are you?
That's what I am now. It's canon.
We've made it.
Are you seeing two stars in the sky and calling it like the Crusades of constellations, or is it textually based and you can see a way to play that with given the lines that are there?
Damn, Daniel.
Yes, I see a number of ways that could be played. There are a number of different, textually and otherwise, because we're given such artistic license with Shakespeare, I think there are definitely ways that you could make that happen. You could tell that story.
Okay.
That's
cool.
I think I would tell you, Paul, but I'm going to charge you a ticket price when my theater for new audience production of Midsummer goes up.
This is how good of friends we are, guys. No comps.
You said earlier in the podcast that you're shocked that I haven't played Helena yet, so I'll see you in rehearsal.
There you go, exactly.
But yes, I'm so with you. First of all, I'm also a hopeless romantic, so I'm 100% on board with this. I think if I were to think about the text, I would say that the text leaves enough room for either choice to be made. And I think it's more interesting to do it the Adam way.
So do I. I
agree.
That's my point. I could not forget that he was still in the sunken place the way I saw in this production.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either I'm supposed to being like, okay, logic doesn't matter that much because it's just a fun comedy, whatever, or I don't forget about it and I recognize it as a shortcoming if I want truth to what's happening.
Yeah,
so
and here's the other thing too is like,
and I don't fucking let nothing go.
The only thing you have to change that in the production is Puck goes, I apply to your eye, gentle lover remedy, or whatever the line is, and then he goes to both of them and does it. That's all you have to do. It's either he
just
just
do more than that, because he genuinely hates her, and
I just mean in order to change any sort of text, in order to change anything that's
in order
drastically
to change the physical what's it called, stage direction,
right? In order to change the circumstance, in order to make him not be stuck in this forever,
and honestly,
which is a huge change.
Honestly, I might feel like that. I mean, I'm not an actor, but it would feel like if all my lines, how do you guys feel about this? Being actors, it occurs to me to ask the question: if your character is supposed to say one thing the entire play, but feel the opposite, that sounds like a really difficult role to play.
Do you know what that sounds like, Paul? Human life. You know what I mean? How often do we go through things being like, no, I don't want this. Absolutely not. That is ridiculous. Why would I ever want that? And then in your head, at the exact same moment, you're going, I kind of want that. Yeah, actually, I really feel like I want that. That is human life, man. Now I will go back to
all the time.
I will go back to your point, Chloe. I don't think either is better or worse.
Yeah,
they're both completely valid and both tell interesting stories. I just think
I don't think the one that the sunken place is an interesting story.
Yes. if you lean into it, I think this production. No, I'm serious.
I'm just imagining when they wake up, it's like horror music plays. They're like, "You're married now," bump, and it's just like it's like an eerie score.
His eyes are like the size of saucers. Yeah, that would be fun. But I I don't know.
I'm saying I don't think both are interesting stories. I think we you either just say, "Oh, it's fun. It's just magic, and it's just like a Sunday movie, cool."
But I don't want to do that.
We lean into
right, which I think this production did. I don't think they took a stand one way or the other about it. Yeah. Which is a way to do it. Do I think that's the best possible use of that storyline? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. But it's a way to do it. And it's a way, it's a totally fine. Because at the end of the day, also, we've got 17 other plates story-wise spinning in the air.
I know.
You can't focus.
I feel like that happens a ton with Shakespeare. And it's just it's fucking difficult.
But I promise you, any actor or any theater artist or any storyteller of any kind who has any familiarity with this play, every time this play gets brought up or they do this production, the conversation
Really?
we are having right now
happens.
I've had this in
I'm
every
so
rehearsal
smart.
room
Guys,
I've
I'm a
ever
genius.
worked on this play.
I'm just
Yeah, no, it's logical what Oberon's doing. Yeah, it's logical.
I mean, it is. If he wanted her to fuck a donkey, and then he just like, you know what I really liked actually is that okay. Let me try to tie this to the chronology a little bit. Okay, so the fucking plot ensues, and Oberon's like, "Hey, yo, Puck, go! I got 2 jobs for you. One, go fucking put the love potion in Titania's eyes, so next person she sees, she thirsty for." And then also, I saw a guy who a girl was all about him, and he was like, didn't like her at all. Make him like her too. And so like Puck was like, got it, boss. Aye, I'm out. And so Puck does that, and obviously, so he does Titania, does it right, and he does he tries to go for Demetrius to get Demetrius to love Helena back, but instead he mistakes Demetrius for Lysander. And then when Lysander wakes up, it just so happened that Helena, looking for Demetrius, fucking sees him first, and he's like, oh shit, now I'm all about you. And they commences sexually harassing her until something happens. until other forces stop her. But what I really liked about this, so I'm sorry, I'm taking a long road.
No, do it.
So what I really liked about this is that in the movie version that we saw, it seemed like Puck just got distracted and just started doing whatever he wanted, and then in his distraction saw the players. What are the players called again?
The Mechanicals.
The Mechanicals.
Players is good too.
Yeah, we need to start a band called the Mechanicals.
Done.
And just like, I'm gonna turn one of these motherfuckers into a donkey. And then that donkey also happened to see Titania. In this play, it seems like Puck was like, I see an opportunity to make Titania fuck a donkey, so I'm gonna go ahead and do all that. And that was better. It tied it up. It was like a lot more because apparently I'm just into pony play. But
no comment.
I'm gonna write that down.
But
save that for later.
But I just liked it better that it was just all put into the same box as like Puck's plan. Cool. And so otherwise it was just too many like, oh, and this happened to run into this thing, and it was just like one too many of those for me to like take anything seriously.
So I think you're basically saying, but let me just ask you point blank about it. What is the more interesting version of that story to you?
More donkeys. And
obviously.
But like that it's intentional.
This one was the more interesting one. We're like he told Puck like basically we're to believe that he told Puck, I'm mad at Titania, go make her fuck a donkey. And then Puck goes to do all that shit that does that, and that it just allows my brain to like section off that one piece of the story as in a much bigger chunk than like, oh, and then also this happened to happen, and this person stumbled upon this, which I feel like sometimes, I don't know, like it seems to be like just forgiven and nobody like talks about it.
Yeah.
And that's to get back to my Demetrius point. I think you just made my point for me. It is more interesting to watch intentional conflict than it is to watch a series
that was my point too.
A strange event. No, I'm saying you
checkmate me. I checkmate you.
I think it is more interesting to watch intentional actions with conflict in them, with different forces pulling you different ways inside of yourself, than just watching people kind of like fumble their way from one thing, event to the next.
So my point, my whole I agree with that, and I'm on board. But my whole point about like understanding that fairies aren't humans and don't have the same sensibilities or like emotional state, even though they feel like jealousy and things like that. But like you might be tempted to read into the fact that Puck even interacted with the players at all and decided to turn one of them into a donkey, or like that Oberon cared about the love of these two people, our human characters at all.
You're like, why?
Because exactly, for them it is chump change. It's nothing, and they are curious and fickle in those senses. And so that's what I mean, is that they're like, don't judge them like humans. And I feel like I'm right about that.
I hear you on that, and I also hear Adam's point about like that's so human, being fickle, being curious. There's still
logical through lines of like what somebody. There's still intention and obstacle. Don't get me wrong, that's universal for us to even like understand what's going on. But I mean, don't judge them like they're not round. They are the. She is Summer, he is like they are nature. They are unmoving. They will be the way they are until the end of time. Like, and so like they are, in that sense, they're not like humans who are constantly evolving and changing.
It's also interesting because like the fairy world has such an opportunity in this story to look at, experience, and comment on the human world. Whereas I wonder what it would be like if the humans in this world were able to see what was happening around them in the fairy world and also have a comment on it. Because it's, I feel like a lot of the fairies' fascination with the humans is that kind of like the unknown, the other. You have an entirely different existence than I do, and I'm fascinated by it, and I want to be a part. I want to get into it and learn about it and all this kind of stuff.
I want to do a Midsummer where the fairies are robots, and it's in the future.
It's funny when I'm talking about this, I'm drawing from like maybe like 4 other fantasy series that all like have a ton of fairy lore in it. Right. So like, and that makes this play more interesting for me. But it's like it's hard to like explain all that. But like, the fact that those are all drawing from the same sources, and those sources are older and also, than Shakespeare, and like they exist in this like, other fantasy zeitgeist, I guess.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, all I'm hearing now is the Forgeries of Jealousy speech done in a monotone robotic voice.
These are the forgeries of jealousy. Oh my God, now I want it.
Anyway, so we have, the plots or the plans people have got in place have started and also kind of failed, because now I just lost it.
Now you're just thinking about all the lines said in a monotone robotic voice.
Oh my God,
I hear you, man.
It jumps back and forth so much, but I know we end up at one point with. We spend some time with Bottom and the players, who have gone out into the woods, by the way, to go practice for this competition again, to tie back to Hippolyta and Mayor Daddy's wedding.
Mayor Daddy!
and I love that little set piece they have. They have a bunch of like living room furniture covered in grass.
Cool.
It was awesome.
That was such a cool little treat. Again, this goes back to Taymor's visual.
It's very free.
Treasure trove.
He's making little nibble motions right now. I wish you could see it. Yes. It's it.
What a cool way to handle that, especially with the production that we've talked about, has little to no sets, very few props, and like those that are there are used and reused in many different ways. And then for this little treat to just be this full-on living room set. And it's a recliner that actually reclines, a coffee table, a
lamp, a floor lamp. That's all, and they're all like have like a grass skin,
just like covered in AstroTurf.
And just to like put a little hat on it, a little ping. All of the scene transitions in this are part of the story. Like they're not just like, we got to move this. It's logistical. It's like, it's part of it. Like Puck brought out that grass carpet like a fucking cape. It was awesome. It just felt like a huge part of like the fairies are manipulating them, just it all tied in.
The movement of the piece itself, the physical, actual actors' movement, and also the pacing of the piece itself never really stopped, to the point where when it finally got to the intermission at the end of this scene, like the intermission for the show, both my wife and I were both sitting there going, "Oh my God, that's intermission? What a long first act. Oh wait, but it seems like it's also been 5 minutes."
I know.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't feel long. It felt, if everything was super entertaining.
Not in the slightest. Yeah.
One of the other things I loved is that in the camera angle showed you this, but if you were in the crowd, you would have seen it. Is that all of the little fairy kids, the scenes that they weren't in, they were up in the mezzanine watching the play, just laying down on pillows, which is like, and I kept seeing them in the background, and it retained this magical air. What was happening on stage already like still gave you that, but it just like, it really helped, and it was really cool, and I just wanted to remember that.
Yeah. And again, to go back to the idea of the fascination of the fairy world with the human world, Puck's interaction with the props and the costume pieces and just the way the rude mechanicals are rehearsing and all this stuff, it is so genuine. And I think that also speaks to the actress playing Puck and her great work. But like, it was it felt so natural. It didn't, in other productions that I've been in or seen, sometimes it can feel a bit jarring to have the fairy interjection into the human world. Whereas this just felt, it flowed.
It was perfect.
Yeah, it flowed very, very well.
Yeah, you know what else I'm realizing now too? Do you guys know that Peter Pan touring musical production with Kathy What's-Her-Name?
No.
Have you ever seen this?
That's a weird last name. Is it German?
What's her name? It's okay. I'm German. I can do that. So she
does she speak in a robotic voice? Yeah. I've got a crow. I'm just the cleverest fella. We've officially got off the rails now.
We've done it.
My sides are splitting.
But this version of Puck reminded me of this woman who is like, I think probably in her 50s and tours playing Peter Pan. I don't know if it still happens. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I don't know the actress's name, but yes, it's a well-known story in the theater world of this woman has been playing Peter Pan for decades. And she's great at like flying on these rigs.
I honestly love it because you're just like, do you want to like move on and do something? She's like, I'll never grow up.
It's kind of perfect. Dude, but like seriously,
just gonna stay in Neverland and play Peter Pan forever. I want there's gotta be a fucking episode or something about that because that's the irony of that is just too rich.
No, it's great. And it's so funny too because like this Puck reminded me of her, but in all the best ways, because she's like athletic and kind of weird and quirky. And like, I was looking at this woman and being like, she could do that too. Yeah. But
she definitely does.
It was just interesting.
Does backflips on the high wire.
Yeah, because there was so much youthful energy and it's such a youthful role and has so much magic in it.
Yeah.
But there was just an interesting parallel there.
And also, to get a little technical from a performer standpoint, like you can tell the training that this person has had.
Yes.
Both text work, both. There's so many layers of it, but you could see there are some clowning lessons. There's some mime. There's some pantomime. It's just these little. She was able to condense into one performance the best dusting of like 8 or 9 different physical and textual techniques that really made this. I'm going to go ahead and just say it now. Now we're this deep into it. One of my favorite Pucks.
Ooh.
Wow.
I don't know. I now that I'm actually racking my brain.
I don't know, man. What about a hairy, shirtless Stanley Tucci?
That's the Stanley Tucci that always visits me in my dreams.
What about Harry Tooch? You sure?
That's the name of the band, the Rude Mechanicals and the Harry Tooch.
No,
it's Harry Tooch and the Rude Mechanicals. That's it.
God.
That's it.
Oh my God, my favorite Puck that I've ever seen. So the same summer we did this Midsummer Jersey, so it was at this summer camp, and the quote unquote adults they were real adults. They were like professional working actors. So, but they were like our teachers and they were also very childish. So I was like, oh yeah, you're cool. But they were like very much our mentors. And so they put on a production every year and they did Midsummer Night's Dream. And this Puck was like this dude with these like bright, piercing blue eyes and like dark hair. And he just like even in real life, he would always just like look at you like he had a secret. Like, all the time. And so to see that on stage for me was like, he already is a magical being. Like I don't know, that was my favorite I've ever seen.
And see now that I've said all that, I'm also going back in my head, and I think to go back to an earlier point, one of the greatest joys of Shakespeare for me is that I can approach it at 20. I can approach it at 10 years old feeling this way about a play. I can then come back to it at 20 and feel a completely different way about it. I can now come back at it at 30 and feel a completely different way about it. I've seen some very wonderful Pucks in my day. Today, in the middle of the summer of 2020, this Puck that I just saw, the best Puck I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where if you'd asked me 10 years ago who it was, I would say something entirely different. The same way that
you would, you sentimental fuck.
Boy, tell me about it, buddy. But like that's why we keep coming back to Shakespeare, right? Because it's he captures the human spirit so perfectly, but in such an open-ended way that anyone can bring their experiences to that role. Be it Hamlet, be it Puck, be it Lady in Waiting number 2, be it Messenger number 3. You can. everyone can bring something special and unique, just like each person is special and unique to each production. And that is so amazingly cool and so special. And I don't think there's anything else like that out there in the storytelling world.
I believe you, but I don't understand any of those examples you gave because I don't know what they are.
You should listen to this really cool podcast, Paul. I think you might.
Is it called Shakeshero?
Yeah, you might learn a thing or two about it.
I'm really glad we're
Messenger
friends
number
with you. What?
Messenger number 3?
I mean, it's not anyone specific. It's just like there's a lot of messengers in these plays.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
Oh yeah, like lady in waiting. Like
you named 3 examples. I'm like, I don't know any of these.
Oh no, he was just being vague.
That's why I was looking at Chloe during that.
I was like, thumbs up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, but honestly, like I'm really that's just nice. That's nice.
Come in, Chloe, with a reference
to Community that no one will get. We're deep in it now.
Dimitri is in the. Oh, I wrote down Dimitri's in the second place. I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it was funny too because he acted like he was like I'm discovering something about myself. That I really do love Helena at the end, but they never like got rid of the thing on his eyes.
my love for Hermia has just melted as like the snow. And now my love for Helena, I'm like he's in the second place.
Can I ask Paul, because the last time we talked about this in take 1 of this episode and now take 2, you've brought this up a great deal, and it seems to be a point that keeps coming back to you.
It's funny because I fucking like forgot about that point, but I rediscovered it in this one because I'm like, where's his fucking resolution?
Right. I wonder about that. Like, can you talk on why that's the thing that you keep coming back to?
I mean, because I don't know. I'm trying to. The answer that comes to me is like very long, and I'm trying to like find a way to condense it, but I can't necessarily find a way. Like Chloe, me and you talk about this. Like I consider myself to be fairly robotic, or like maybe super conscious. Like I don't like leave a lot of room or like even like for it's just like human, like let the feelings like no, there's a reason for everything.
When you described the fairies as logistical, I was like, oh, he liked the fairies.
Yeah. Or I feel like I understood them. Yeah. Like they had a code. Fairies have a code that they always abide by no matter what, and it's their nature to do it. Unlike humans. So like humans are a lot more messy. So like when people are doing something, and so the way I evaluate maybe a fictional character or a character on screen will be me breaking down or drawing a constellation of the cause and effect that
does what they do make sense.
Exactly, and it makes them make sense, or like so I can find a through line to like categorize them in my brain, understand them, and like I even with that like very conscious and like simplified way of looking at humanity or just like the small quantifiable aspect of humanity, it's still beautiful, it's still wonderful, it's still super complicated, and I definitely do like understand that there's that aspect of it. But so because I'm hyper focused on that, when it seemed like everybody else forgot that Demetrius still never found a reason to love Helena and yet is woken up and is magically in love with her, I could not forget that. I would still like, wait, like somebody help this man.
Yeah, save him.
So it's not like I don't think anything. It's just because of my framework for how I look at it, that kind of thing would not escape my notice. Not that I'm hyper focused on him specifically. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, very much so. It's again, theater, storytelling, that art form is very subjective. It's in very much our own personal experience, and we are all going to bring our own preconceived notions and idiosyncrasies to anything that we watch and that we experience. And I just as a friend of yours, as well as a fan of the way you think about things and the way you view things, because it's so different than myself, it's just something I thought I'd bring up.
Word. Yeah, justice for Demetrius is my answer.
Hashtag wake Demetrius
up. Dude, wake him up. I totally agree.
So the story fucking like it pushes on, but like this is like we're like in the soup now. Everything is kind of all mixed up. But what happens with the lovers, the triangle, is that they have this big old fight eventually, where like all of them have to confront each other because and
it becomes physical.
It becomes physical. And what happened in the movie, what I remember is like they ended up getting like pretty much naked. Well, fucking fucking Lysander gets naked like from the beginning as soon as they get in the woods.
Lysander's like, let's take it off.
That was crazy. But like this one, like, you know, the clothes start to come off and then Chloe's like, she looks at one of the costumes. She's like, oh, look at that seam. They're all going to get naked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Did you have that moment too, Adam?
Clocked it immediately.
Right?
And then like, obviously what happens is that people start ripping each other's clothes off and the dudes are about to fight, but like they both decide to get undressed before they get fight, which is almost homoerotic. I wasn't really sure what was happening. They're like, oh, I'm gonna fight you for her love. Let me take my pants off right quick. And so, you know, people rip other people's clothes off, and eventually everybody's naked. And what I find out,
not like naked, just like underwear.
Yes,
just
underwear or like push up bra, and like Hermia's nipple was like out.
There was
almost,
yeah.
Like I bet you, like I said to Chloe, I'm like in rehearsals, her boob fell out like a bunch of times. No way.
Now,
100%.
Here's a question, and I direct this mostly at Chloe, and Paul, feel free to hop in here. I feel like, and this is coming from a perspective of someone who's seen this a number of times, that a pretty agreed upon, I don't want to say trope, but let's go ahead and say trope, a pretty agreed upon path for that scene, for the lovers' quarrel, because of the quote unquote transformative nature of the forest in this story. I feel like it's a pretty agreed upon thing that like you walk into the lovers' quarrel scene with whatever you're wearing, and by the end of it, you're in your underwear.
Absolutely. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a version of this scene where people did not get more naked than they previously were.
Is it valid then? Is just like...
I think it makes sense to me, because the idea is that they're kind of shedding the society that they've come from. The whole idea of them coming to the woods is
the
like...
The forest is transformative. It's transformative.
Right, and so it's getting
it.
more primal, as we said. It's getting more like animal. It's getting more like down to my instincts and what I actually care about and like and want, as opposed to what society has told me that I want. And honestly, going back to Save Demetrius, like, I think that, you know, I think that he would be the best example if we leaned into that, of him having that thing that's put upon him of society wants me to be with someone like Hermia, so I should want to be with someone like Hermia, and then him going out to the woods and being like, but what I want is to be with Helena, even though she's fucking weird and crazy.
And tall. Ew. Just kidding.
I love you too. You stupid.
I think those are all valid points. I just think, as a fan of the theater, I'm ready to see that scene.
He wants to see some nips. Adam.
Well,
wait, wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want. What?
No, that's a constant in my life, Paul. But I mean, in the context of this scene, personally, like I've seen that done. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I do. I get it. And
we've done the lovers walk in with all their clothes, and they leave the scene without.
I can't even imagine it without that.
Is that a fair argument? Just because, like, I mean, like, a lot of scenes are played the same way. Like, do you want to see it just for the sake of something different, or like?
Yes.
What if they put more clothes on?
Sure. It's just like it's just a pretty well agreed upon.
Just imagine like 100 shirts,
like Joey and Friends. But
I hear you, and the thing is, you've seen this play.
Opinion.
You've done this play a bunch of times, so you must be sick of it by now. Because I've seen this play a pretty normal amount of times for a nerd, and I've seen it in every version I've seen.
Adam's bored with his Midsummer sex life.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, we've seen it. And I've been a part of it where that scene has happened that way.
Yeah.
And I've been a Lysander in the scene where that did not happen. And we just let it happen. Let the scene play out as it.
Yeah.
I just feel
Where's the pony play?
I'm not saying
what? No, that's just,
I'm not saying it's a bad choice, because it's definitely interesting and it definitely helps visually tell the story of what's happening.
Yeah.
I just am interested in seeing what's the next version of that.
Yeah.
Like, I think we as a society can go ahead and say the lovers' quarrel ending with all the lovers in their underwear, like, we've done it.
It's
okay. We got it. It's on film, multiple versions. Posterity is done. Let's try something else.
I'm definitely with you in that respect of it has been done, and it has been done so much. I would be so interested in seeing something different. Like, I think it's a valid choice.
What's okay. I understand, like, when people are doing like a thing that's like on the fringe of the play, and you could do it a bunch of different ways, but I gotta ask, like, it sounds like you're like taking a part of the play that just, it's not like everybody thinks like, oh, I'm so smart for doing this when they do it. They're just like, this is the natural. It's like, okay, we've seen Hamlet, kill everybody at the end, but it's been done. Like, everybody.
No, incorrect.
So I'm not saying you're saying that, but like in my brain, I'm having trouble distinguishing between the two things. So like, help me. What's an example of something that you might do as opposed to getting them all naked in the lovers' quarter?
Not that.
So, but I mean, but bringing the whole thing to a head.
Yeah. Well, here's my point: is that choice stems back to a very famous production in the '60s, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure listeners of your podcast will tell me if I am correct or incorrect. But there was
all 8 of them.
Yeah, there was all 8 of them can tell me how wrong I am. But there was a very famous production done in New York in the '60s, and that's where that trope started. Mm-hmm. And you can check it out. I believe.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know
we learned about it in History of Dramatic Literature at DePaul University.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry Brunetti. Shout out.
Barry.
But it's a very seminal production because it aligned with the times of the hippie revolution and the free love movement and things like that. So that they actually fully got naked in that scene, and and that
got full nip.
That full nips, dude.
Not even just half a nip.
No slips of areolas or nothing. It was full on.
You can't slip it if it's already out.
But that started the trope of it. Again, all of the reasons for the stripping of the characters and the actors are valid. I'm not saying it's a bad choice, and I'm not saying it doesn't tell the story well, doesn't aid the storytelling, doesn't check a lot of boxes.
I get you. You're fucking dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. What would you do that's different?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I would go at the opposite thing again, like putting on more clothes. I don't know. I'd have to sit down with my production team as we're figuring it out. But it would be something that I, as a director, or as a theater maker, or as one of the characters in the play, if that was proposed, I would not argue and be like vehemently, absolutely never, I'll never do that ever because that's stupid. No, I would never do something like that. But I would make an argument that we should make a different choice.
We should just push in a different direction.
Just do something different.
Just to see what happens. And then and this is an interesting thing too of being a director or being an actor in a room is let's try something else and see what happens. If it doesn't work and if we try a bunch of things and we find that this is the most truthful choice, let's do that. But and again, I think that there are sometimes when I see something and I'm like, oh, it's overdone, I hate it, or and this doesn't feel like one of those things. This feels truthful to me in a lot of the times that I've seen it.
Except for Helena having her fucking heels on the whole time.
That is never truthful. Listen, Jurassic World can suck it, but...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally forgot.
Even after their clothes were off, Helena's heels were still on. I was like, get out of here!
Oh, I was so mad.
I was mad
every
too.
time. Honestly,
she is crazy.
You were more mad than me, and I was really, really thankful for that. I was like, damn, Paul.
Oh, how far he's come since first we met him.
In season 1?
In season 1.
I'm just mad at the heels. It's just they're naked. Like the heels. Okay, cool. Heels on.
Sure, outfit. It's part of the outfit.
Heels come off at the first sign of anything that you have to do that's physical.
Yes.
And yet then they let her get through the entire heels going into the woods were already bad enough, but they let her get through the entire scene where they take off all their clothes and her heels are still on, and I fucking hated it. It just really grated me.
You know what really grinds
knows,
my gears?
Yeah, right. Who knows exactly why that happened? Was that a designer choice? Was that an actor choice of being I have bad arches, I can't actually take these things? I'm serious. Listen,
I have bad arches, I need my heels.
Well, here's the difference. Here's a major difference between movies and theater. Is that movies, you do it you shoot that shot. Maybe you do a bunch of maybe do 50 takes of it.
8 shows a week for that.
Exactly.
Fuck that.
It becomes a longevity thing. It becomes, how can I safely maintain my health and my physical health while I'm doing this crazy scene? And maybe that was. I'm just saying that could be one example, or it could be a complete fluke. Either way, it's something that caught your eye.
Stop making excuses, Adam. Fuck those heels.
Show me the nips.
We just watched a Romeo and Juliet the other day where all the women were wearing tennis shoes, and I couldn't stop staring. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. I was like, put me in that show.
So the play comes to that part comes to a head, and then Oberon. Forgive me again for the fucking
fairy daddy.
No, so you know what? I want to talk about the fucking pillow fight scene because I loved it.
It was awesome.
When did that come in?
What a cool in the lovers' quarrel.
Was it in the lovers' quarrel?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was.
Because they started it and the fairies finished
The fairies did finish it, and
they beat the shit out of Hermia.
They really did.
And after the lovers finished it though, like the kids who are all the fairies like came in like had this like a fucking 30-person pillow fight on stage, and it was fucking awesome. It was just really cool.
I really
liked it.
Yeah, it was very fun.
And then after Oberon broke it up and he like came onto the stage, and I'm like, oh no. And like so all the kids are still on stage and they're all laying down. Like he was like, you know, like a Papa Lion roars, and like all the cubs just go like, you know, they show them their bellies. They're like, oh, I'm on the ground.
Man, that makes me think about that scene in Othello where he walks into the party and there's the fight and he's like, stop.
And he's and so he walks in, and I'm just like terrified that he's gonna step on one of these children. But then he like they again right after I say that, they smartly like have him stomp once on the ground and they all run away. I'm like, thank God.
See, I thought that I was worried when they were being the forest and they were holding the big, I don't know, 15-foot tall bamboo poles, and the older, much larger, fully grown adult actors are pushing them aside and things like that. I'm like, that little girl is 8 years old, and that bamboo pole is 4 times the size of her. Do not be pushing that hard on it, Demetrius.
You know what? Also, random little touch is that so they had the kids who are like, a lot of them were like maybe like 7 years old, or either that, where they were like a really tiny 10 years old. Like they were just small little bodies, and so the way they had these like weird like kind of like dangling like almost like a half like a mummy costume situation going on, where like they're like wrapped in like this like
and like really white makeup.
It's like they're wrapped in an ace bandage.
Yeah.
but the way they had them seem more fairy like is they basically just had an older kid or an adult just like pick them up by their armpits and just like carry them around.
Yeah, it was
and
awesome.
the kids would just act like they were flying, and it was great. It fucking worked.
It was theater magic, pure and simple. The same way with Taymor's Lion King of like, if you put a guy with a giant lion's head on top of his head and you still see his human head,
He's a lion.
Like, your mind just fills in. The same way that those tiny the smaller fairies were lifted and kind of like they were acting as if they were floating through the world, and the older or larger actors were just dressed in a black.
It was just they're in a hoodie. They were in a hoodie,
and it was amazing how fast I stopped seeing the
who
people were carrying them.
Loved it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Theater and it was
magic,
funny too,
man.
because like you even literally had like, it's not like they didn't have the budget or the logistics, like because Puck is going up and down like on that rig.
Ugh.
But then you just have like for the kids, they're just being carried around by the adults. It was delightful.
I think about that all the time because I'm like, some of that is just like a creativity thing where like you are free yourself to figure out how to do this, but some of that is like a really fine-tuned like psychology thing where you understand where the line is, where we can buy it and where we can't.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like a weird kind of thing, like this will work, even though it's not like you clearly see that someone's being picked up and carried, but like it's almost like you understand like psychology, like I don't know, like your finger is very much on the pulse of like where the my disbelief
attention is going,
where my disbelief can be suspended.
And it's funny too. I always feel like this in my processes in like whatever capacity, but I feel like it's always about trying a bunch of different stuff until you find what clicks. And I'd be so curious to be in that rehearsal room and be like, did they try a bunch of different stuff? Right. Did you just walk in and go, carry them? Like, you know, and I have a feeling. Or one of the
guys was like, hey, boss, what about this?
Right. I have a feeling like, you know, based on just what I know about like human ingenuity and like human creativity, it feels like it's a very, I don't know, just the result feels very like they tried a bunch of stuff and picked the best ones.
Well, this also goes to the conversation of Shakespeare definitely more than a vast majority of the playwrights and screenwriters of today, minus like the Marvel and DC world or whatever, the superhero world. Shakespeare asks the most of our willing suspension of disbelief as an audience. To go back to another point that you've made, Paul, it's like, what would this have looked like in the late 1500s, early 1600s on stage? why do we as people go to the theater and somebody stands up and says, "I'm the King of England in 1492," and we all go, "Cool."
Right.
Gotcha. Next.
Sweet.
Like, move on. The idea, like, watching this bottom with the donkey head, where you can clearly see the puppetry that he himself is doing to make the mouth move, and how quickly we immediately go, got it. Moving on. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
The idea that we watch these fairies fly around the stage when really they're being carried by someone larger than themselves in a black hoodie, but so quickly we go, no, they're flying. That's magic. That's definitely fairy power.
Yeah, we buy in.
Yeah. Like, I'll tell you, it's so cool because I'm just an average guy walking the streets 99% of the time. The few times I've actually been able to play some like a king or something like that in a Shakespeare play, nothing makes you feel cooler than like walking on stage and like the whole stage like goes, "Oh, it's the king," and we all got to bow to him. It's also one of those things of like, if we watch the people on stage react to that person that way, then we as the audience, we're going to do the same thing.
Like, oh, it's the king. It's the king.
It's a band. It's like being a band. It's like having, one person like strum the chord, but everybody else plays their part along with it. Then that one focal point gets just amplified.
Right.
Or it's like at the end of the song where like you're going and the one person gives the cue and they're going, and we're done, and everybody hits the bump on the same thing. It's that.
Yes. Yeah, you got it. Like, I mean, it's like that for anything with a really good scene, with a good button, or with,
For sure.
Yeah. It's totally like
the
that.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah. That same kind of satisfaction.
So, just so we can like get through this for a little bit, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm just like kind of holding out again for past me who are like, maybe you're trying to use this a little bit as a tool to like, where are
we?
At? So yeah, so all the hijinks is happening and everybody's plot is in there. And then the lovers, fucking, come to this huge head, and fucking Hermia is asked out because both of the dudes now love Helena, but she ain't quite believing it because she's like, I only want men I can't have. No, I'm just kidding. She's like, she doesn't believe it. She thinks they're making
lying.
Fun of her.
Yeah.
And so that's happening. And then Oberon is like, Puck, what the fuck did you do? Like, you messed it up and you did it. And he's like, make it right. So Puck's like, all right, sir, my bad. I'm gonna go do that. And then also he feels bad, or the prank is just over now. So he's like, all right, also I'm going to undo Titania because she's been getting railed by this donkey I'll play, and she's probably done. so this is over. So
I just can't wait for my mom to text me after she was this episode, and she goes, "Wow, you guys said some really cool things.
Shakespeare did it."
Boy, Paul said some
interesting things,
colorful comments.
I had slowly earlier. I was like, how many times have I said like donkey sex in this fucking play? It's fucking happened. What do you want me to say?
It did.
And don't hide your light under a bushel, Paul.
I will not. I'll stand up tall.
Aww.
And proclaim that donkey sex.
This is me
from the mountaintop. Hey man, I'm up the episodes. It's explicit. I don't know what you want me to say. And so anyway, he says, he undoes. That's what I'm saying. That's another reason why I'm like, it feels just like a fun play. Like everything is just neatly getting undone as easily as it got done. It's not like the circumstances of the world brought these people to a head, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, it was a organic story, and that's why we're seeing it. It's like, no, like fucking magical people says this shit's gonna happen, and then it happens, so we can have a clean wrap up for the story. So right. Like that's a part of it that clues me in to just be like, oh, this is just like fun. Although I do concede all the points that we made about like, the deep aspects and lenses to look at this in.
Deep.
But so I'm doing okay, right? I'm assuming you'll stop me if I fuck something up. And
keep going, Mayor Daddy.
And that and that happens. So and Bottom basically, and also I like the theater aspect of like Puck just takes the donkey head off of.
Yeah, like literally
off of Bottom, and he's just like, oh, I'm a human again, and then he comes back to the players, and they're like, oh, sweet, and so a few things are happening now. The players are like, oh shit, Bottom's back. He's not dead. We can actually have a play. And then they also find out they're like, oh, our play also got chosen to be the play for the wedding of Mayor Daddy and Hippolyta.
Yes.
And also all the royals are going hunting, and they're hunting deer, and they find
the Lion King cast.
Dude, it was a couple
Straight
of props from the Lion King.
Dude, when they came on the deer heads, I turned to my wife and I was like, oh, did you forget Julie Taymor directed Lion King? Because she's here to remind you.
Like it's like a little advertisement on the deer head. go see Lion King.
After this, walk 6 blocks down to the Lion King.
And so and where the lovers have been laid in their correct pairs, and the correct potion has been applied to the correct people's eyes, and they wake up and see each other for the first time, and they're like, oh, well, now Dimitri in his ultimate privilege no longer puts the pressure, like alleviates the pressure from Hermia to actually need to marry him because he don't want to marry her anymore, which is again a fucked up undertone that never gets addressed.
Yes, my love for Hermia, like the snow of Siberia, melted.
I love Helena now.
It is Helena that I want.
Helena.
And so that alone alleviates. And so part of what we're supposed to read from that is that Hippolyta actually was the only compassionate one, and he's like, oh, I'm doing my duty by saying that she got to marry him or gifted to a nunnery or die. And Hippolyta was like mad at him for that. Uh-huh. And so she like stormed out. It was a very, very quick scene. And so now he was like, oh, well, now that, the dude doesn't want to have her, you could just marry whoever you want. I'm a good guy again. Hippolyta's like, close enough.
No, it's interesting in that speech that Demetrius gives of his "My love for Hermia melted as the snow" speech. He does say some things about his love for Helena in there. Like, he talks about it like
he goes up to Helena and he goes like, "Get out, get out."
Well, yeah, that's it.
I'm sorry, wrong movie.
I got lost down that rabbit hole. But he says in that speech something to. Now I'd have to pull up the text, but it's something to the effect of, like I ate something too sweet and then I got sick of it and then thought, no, I'm serious. This is the text.
I know. I don't disbelieve you. I just hate it.
I stepped away from it, but now I realize how much I love that thing. Like, and he gives a number of examples of that. Of it's like I had too much of a good thing.
I remember that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just going back to our hashtag Wait Demetrius Up conversation in this whole episode, and something that I would hope that your listeners would join in the conversation about. But it is there are text-based evidence for many different versions of this way that story is told.
That's a good point. That is good. Yeah, like.
Thank you, Paul.
No, I would be much more interested to hear that, but I don't want to see a horror play where he's in the sunken place. But that's the play I saw. And
Jordan Peele's Midsummer.
I can't ignore it. Every time I see that, I can't ignore it. I'm with you. Like I'm a hopeless romantic who is also kind of analytical. And as those two people combined in one person, it makes me like, but he doesn't really love her.
If you're a hopeless romantic, I feel like you are scared for him.
Yes.
Like I don't know. I don't understand how anyone could ignore it.
It is a conversation that needs to happen anytime this play is done.
It makes me happy to know that the conversation is had. I didn't realize what I was hitting on when I did it.
Every time.
Because my relationship was just with the movie and like also kind of with Chloe as we were watching it. But like it felt like, why is everybody ignoring this man needs help?
Well, that also goes, this whole conversation about Demetrius's arc and where he ends up, I think, goes back to what I was saying in the first scene of, I think
his arc straight downward to the second place.
Right, exactly. Into Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone. This play can be surface level and fun and exciting and super silly and such nothing but barrel laughs the whole time. Spectacle, and that is so okay, and there are so many productions that are so successful about that. And I'm not knocking any of that, and I'm not saying that this is better or worse. I'm just saying I think that there is other things
to be mined, yeah.
Yes, there is reality to be played in the fact that the play starts with a father threatening his daughter with death or his way. There is this real thing of this man who, whether he doesn't feel any love for Helena anymore or does, and then is shifted over to Hermia and then shifts back to Helena, that can be magic and that can be silly and, light up flowers and fun musical elements, perfectly okay. Or it could be a true moral and internal struggle of this guy that we then watch. I think that the play affords, like you were talking about with a painting, the closer in you get, the more you can dive into and dissect. Or the further out you get, you can look at it and just go, "What a beautiful painting!"
Was fun. Yeah.
Exactly. I think you're making the case that there's so much to what can be written off as a surface level play has a lot more to it.
The only thing I struggle with for that point is that it's already doing so many things even as a surface level play. Mm-hmm. There's just so many things to keep track of and so many things going on to it feels difficult for me. I'm sure it's possible, but it feels like it would be really difficult to spend enough time or focus enough on those other parts that seem to be happen at times, but not really have a strong, consistent through line through the play. To do both those things at once sounds incredibly hard to me, and I don't quite see how you would do it. But
just wait till you come and see mine and Chloe's production.
I believe it's possible, and I believe in you guys, but but I'm waiting to be convinced or waiting to be wowed.
Sure.
But yeah, so at this point, it feels like we're done with the podcast and it feels like we're done with the play, but oh no, there's a whole last scene.
Oh my God, and, the play within the play.
So emotionally, it's over. The lovers got together, everything got wrapped up, all the stakes that were high are done, but the play is oh no, there's dessert, and you're oh, a slice of cake. They're no, a whole cake. You have to eat all of it.
But
sit down.
Matilda.
But honestly,
unbuckle your belt.
But honestly, it's always, and I don't know, you have more experience with this than I do, but I feel every time I see or am in this play, the thing everybody's talking about when they leave the theater is the play within the play is so funny.
Right.
Everything else kind of gets eclipsed by this awesome fucking cake. It's a good cake.
It's a good cake.
So yeah, we finished it off with the Bottoms fucking, players group, the Mechanicals. I love it so much. And they are tasked with putting the play on, and they talked about it before, and Bottom, we never spent too much time talking about Bottom, but Bottom is he wants to be the fucking, Hercules, but they give him the bullshit role of being, he's not the woman. No, he's just the more effeminate or the lover type.
He's the lover instead of the fighter.
Yeah. Exactly.
But he wants to be the fighter. I imagine it feels like what this play is telling me. I know it's an updated translation version, but it feels like Shakespeare's making fun of actors, how they want to be everything. They want too much. He was oh, I could be the actor. Oh, I could also be the lion character. Oh, I could be the lover guy and the love interest. I could be all of those things. And that's
what do you mean? What do you mean, Paul? Actors are never like that.
And so that was hilarious because so the play within the play was funny because he was clearly just creating a very transparent vehicle to comment on reality, but in a super funny way.
And it's so funny that 400 plus years later,
it still works.
It really does. Actors have not changed a bit.
Damn it, if it's not so close to home.
It seriously is.
And I love that a lot of the play too. All the players were talking about the difficulty in how do I depict this thing on a stage? I don't know. You just stand there and you say that it's this. One guy's how do I be a wall? He's you just stand there with your arms out and then you
and say you're a wall.
Say you're a wall.
Then you're a wall.
And then it works. And it's just it's a lot of time.
Kind of works.
So it's just super unbearably meta.
Well, it speaks to the human ingenuity of the theater. Well, we got to figure out a way to put this entire battlefield on stage.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, if you four wear red and you four wear blue.
Right.
And we say
if the Capulets wear red and
right.
the Montagues wear blue.
Then everybody goes, oh, yeah, that was a battlefield of 10,000 people. Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah.
And there were 6 people on stage.
Yeah. And they're trying to figure out who's the moon. And it turns out they brought that guy out with a light bulb on his head.
So good.
So one of the things that I mean, I got the same message from the movie that we watched as well as this one, was just like, it was a comment on all those things. But it was a ridiculous comedy at first with a bunch of like, you know, people not remembering their lines, not remembering where to come in. The no budget made it very difficult for them to depict what they wanted to depict. And then all the royals were like, you know, not giving a shit, and also like, you know, like yelling a bunch of shit. And then they had the one guy again, and he got a chance to like note that it's, you know, it's difficult for me to play this woman character because I'm a guy. Like it's hard for me to like sell this. But then in the play within a play, everybody's like, you know, bullshit. Like the king and or Mayor Daddy is fucking like yelling shit to like the people on stage. Like it's very medieval times more than it is like a fucking play.
That's funny. It kind of is.
Like it's just people just.
Oh,
fucking,
I want to see him with a giant turkey leg.
Yeah, like
I really like this production because I've always felt those interjections they just come out of left field. But in this production, the lovers and the Duke and Hippolyta, Mayor Daddy, excuse me, and Aegeus, they all get drunk. They're all drunk by the end of it. Yeah. No wonder they're talking over it because they're all hammered.
And I bet you he's like just like it felt like, from what the glimpse that I felt like I was getting through the ages was that like, look how hard you make it for us to put on a show. Like, how are we supposed to be serious? How are we supposed to sell you on this? And then with this truly, you know, like with the right left combo of good writing and somebody who can like act, they suddenly just stole the show and just made everybody silent.
Oh yeah, the actor who played flute and killed it.
So that was like a beautiful dichotomy, right? In contrast with each other, of like how ridiculous plays can be and also how powerful plays can be, right back and forth in a play within a play, which is why everybody's fucking talking about it. Which is like, I love it. Like, yeah, that was great. They did such a good job.
It's a chance for us as the audience to look at the actors watching a play that is ridiculous. Like, these costumes are absurd. Keep in mind, not an hour before, we were watching a dude in full black and gold makeup say, "I am the king of fairies," and we all went, yeah, cool. All right. It's a chance for us to laugh at ourselves.
Yes.
The levels are so deep. It's like, yeah, so good. But anyway, and so like, and then how does it actually? Oh yeah,
I was just gonna say, speaking of choices, and like, because before we were talking about the lovers and how the choice is always made to make them get naked, and like, you know, I can get behind that, and it sounds like, you know, less so for you, you're like, do something new, but I feel like, you know, I don't know, I think every time I see that play be so broad and then at the end all of a sudden it's really serious, it lands in a really nice way for me.
Sure.
And I don't know about you guys, but like every time that I see it that way, I'm never sick of it.
Now keep in mind, I'm not saying that the lovers.
In all 2 times I've watched it, I'm not sick of it.
Yeah, there you go.
The lovers being stripped of their clothes throughout that scene. Again, I will reiterate, it's not a wrong choice. It's not a bad choice. It tells that story.
Adam will not begrudge you a nip.
No, I'll never begrudge anyone a nip. Or even
you can have 5 nips.
Or just a hint of an areola. I won't begrudge anyone that. My point being is that I'm interested in the next iteration of it.
Yes.
I could watch that version. I just watched it for this podcast and was totally fine with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a very successful version. I'm interested in what somebody else is going to do with it.
But
what's the next version of it?
What about the honest version at the end of the play within the play? How do you feel about that compared to like the lovers undressing?
It's been done, Chloe. He said it already.
Well, you know, like
I'm sorry. Did you
well, like the other movie that we watched, Sam Rockwell's Thisbe, where he drops in at the end of that. Like, good God, I mean,
good.
That's part of Sam Rockwell's genius. Let's just go ahead and put that
He's
aside.
A treasure.
Like
I just want to hug him.
God bless it. What a brilliant actor. But yes, that's a great choice, and I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I've also seen it done where Bottom is the one who, in his death monologue, actually has his full...
Oh, interesting.
Because there's a conversation to be had that in a true old-school Aristotelian, however you want to put it, arc of a character through the course of a story. They start at point A and end at point B, and by the end, when they get to point B, they are a different person than they were at point A. So a question in the couple of times I've played Bottom, and then in the times that I've been in it, the good productions, I think the question is asked: what is Bottom's arc?
Mm-hmm.
What does he learn by the end of this play that can be shown or not shown in his performance as Pyramus, or in the scene before when he comes back and has that connection where he reconnects with the rude mechanicals before they go and do the play?
Right.
What is the lesson that he learns? He has just gone off, and what he writes it off as a dream, does he really, of his time in the forest with the Queen of the Fairies, where, there's this idea that he has spent so much time loving himself and asking everyone around him to give him the attention, give me the love, give me the validation. Finally, someone shows up, Titania, who gives him that, who gives him...
Too much?
Yeah, exactly. And the first time it's actually given to him in the level that he wants it to, unasked for, unadulterated, unadorned, anything.
He's like, wow.
The first thing he does is try to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually interesting, because and if we play the Demetrius and Helena line the way we thought we should, that's the same thing that it mirrors Demetrius's feelings.
Yeah. I think again, this is to go into a deeper version of this
I would
play.
love that. That's fascinating.
I
It's
think
easy to imagine, given the context and given what you described. It feels like it fits. I want to see that too.
He's got to come out of, I think, version A, the version that we see in this production. Hysterical, very funny, completely valid. I would walk away from this production going like, thumbs up, great work. Another version that I think could be just as successful would be a version where he walks out of his experience in the forest with Titania, and it's fundamentally changed him, not only as an artist and as an actor, but as a person.
I would have liked that.
And I feel like
that's
that's what that monologue that happens at the end of that sequence is trying to tell us. That monologue where he's like, I've had a dream, is that he has changed.
Man's eyes have not heard, his ears have not seen.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to put into words.
He can't.
He's actually experienced love.
Wow.
And what does that do to his performance with Pyramus and Thisbe?
I like that more. The more I think about it, I want that. I want it.
You can buy your tickets to Adam Brown and Chloe Baldwin's production of The Midsummer Night's Dream.
With robots.
With robots. Yeah. That is also the benefit of many years of work living with this play. It's a question that I think, and I think it also comes in a 2020 mentality of like, we can't just write people off with a broad stroke. We can't just paint them with a broad stroke. People are complex. Human emotions, human interactions are multi-layered and complex. We learn and grow and change constantly.
Yeah.
And if you don't walk out of the end of the play, like, think about it like this. Hamlet goes through a transformation during a show. Here's another core belief
in the Kenneth Branagh version.
Well, I mean, not in that version, but in the real version.
Here's another core belief of the theater that I think is essential that we keep in mind as we produce these plays. The plays that we watch, the stories that we watch, The Departed or Midsummer or anything in between, those stories are not written about any average Tuesday where they go to work, getting the traffic jam, the microwave is busted at the office, and then they go home and watch TV till they go to sleep. No, we are watching the day that shit hits the fan. So we're watching the day where Hermia, her argument with her father about who she's going to marry comes to a head, where her father finally pulls the card. We're watching not Bottom and Peter Quince's company do their version of Mamma Mia at the community center. No, we're watching their performance that's going to put them on the map. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like, I think that if we
for the stakes, you're saying we need to feel those stakes.
Yes, we have to come through at the end of a story feeling like this person has gone through something and has changed.
I feel like that everybody goes through some stuff, but I'm like, as you're saying this, I'm trying to like put it together, and I'm struggling figuring out what arc certain characters had.
Sure.
Like the lovers, like Lysander, like what did I'm trying to think. Maybe Oberon seems like he had an arc. Like he feels like maybe he had like a new level of compassion because he seems to have like his feelings at the beginning where it's the one thing and they change. But like the lovers, they only had one motivation and then they just got the thing that they wanted. Like they didn't. What arc did they have? Like Bottom didn't seem to have an arc. He just had a weird fucking crazy acid trip and then like did the show. Like I get what you're saying about the arcs that you're describing that you want to see people have. but I didn't really see much of it. It's another reason why I felt like this play was kind of like fun. Like I didn't again, like I was talking about Chloe before. Like if the more like they lean into comedy and like hijinks, like shticks and shit like that, then I'm more forgiving and like willing to just being like, oh, well, I'm just supposed to be having a good time, so I won't think about it too hard. And I don't remember seeing a lot of arcs in this play.
And I mean, the same sentiment can
be made in this production.
Right. Mm-hmm. The same sentiment can be made about a number of different art forms. Music theater is given a lot of guff and written off in a great deal because people walk away from it feeling very similarly. Whereas I think there are more interesting versions of the plays that we know and love, the musicals that we know and love, which one of the reasons I think people like Sondheim is so interesting is because he writes flawed characters who go through journeys.
That are super complex.
Right. He doesn't write, boy meets girl, boy falls for girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl.
Right, and I think we and to go back to one of the very first things you said to me in this podcast, Adam, which is like the women in this play, like the only woman that I feel like follows a typical quote unquote track for a woman that we usually see in media is Hermia, where she's like, I want to marry the boy that I love. No, we have to wait till marriage. Okay, why are you leaving me? Okay, we're back. Helena is like, we fucked and now you left me and I don't know what else to do, so I'm gonna follow you and do some amoral shit.
I can't turn off those feelings
because
like
I can't turn off those feelings, and I'm hot for you, right? Exactly, like literally, like that D was too good. I love you, like, and just this head over heels, like sexual, romantic, all of the things kind of love. Like it's not just romantic for her. Like I think for Hermia at a certain level, like she mostly is at least outwardly expressing this romantic love, but for Helena it's like it's romantic and sexual.
Oh man, it's so funny, man, because like
and then wait, let me just put a pin in this. So
please, I'm sorry.
Then Titania is just this fucking all-powerful being. Like she is beyond not only being a woman, she's beyond humanity, she's beyond mortality,
time.
Yeah, and like so
that's what I'm saying. Those things are what make people human. I don't think you should like consider the fairies human. Like all those impermanence of humanity and like the limitations and our flaws, like those things create the circumstances that we function within. So like I just don't even like.
But it's still the interpretation of the writer's interpretation of a woman.
It's
the writer not being a woman.
Sure,
right.
I don't want to get too much into that. I just had like a whole like a braingasm of like forgetting that like with the because like changing one thing in this ecosystem like ripples out and changes everything around it. But like we were talking about that Demetrius like actually loving Helena. And like, but like telling himself that he shouldn't and should love Hermia and like that being his true character, that makes Helena's character so much more interesting because she's like, I know you love me.
Yes.
I fucking know you love me.
And makes her less crazy.
And it makes her more of like a sacrificial character because I will sacrifice my dignity to help to you realize that you actually love me, which is so brave and not crazy, which makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So like the way they played it now, she is either crazy, but she needs to be crazy to make that puzzle piece fit. But if he actually loved her, everything already fits.
Yeah.
Which is fucking fascinating.
I mean, think about that scene of I love thee not, therefore pursue me not, and that thing of like I am your spaniel. That's what he wants. Like, what if that's a version that's what he wants? That I can't. I've made my mind up. I got to follow my societal prescribed path.
Right. Yeah. Like shit. This is sexy. Wait, no, I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
But to get back to your point is
it's their kink.
Right.
Yeah.
But to get back to your point as well, there's also that section in The Lover's Quarrel where Hermia and Helena have that moment of sisterhood, where Helena's reminding her, we're the best of friends. We grew up together. And there's that really interesting moment of bonding between the two women that has nothing to do with their male counterparts. And that she's pleading with her.
Does this play pass the Bechdel test?
What?
I mean, what are your thoughts on
Oh my God. I just think that it's like...
they were talking about the men. Sorry.
Get out of here. Like, no, it's just interesting because, and I guess if you really get down to it, when it was written, it was two men talking to each other about other men.
Yeah, exactly.
It failed in spectacular fashion.
But no, I do.
I so sorry.
No, you're good. I do feel like that's important in the sense of like, you know, if you look at like the modern stereotypical surface level romantic comedy, it's like the two girls that are at each other's throats for the boy, or like, you know, especially if it's like a high school comedy or whatever. And but it feels like it has just this little moment of tiny little bit of transcension when they transcendence maybe. Yeah, sure.
That's definitely it. Sorry.
Cool.
Not
for
important.
sure,
Continue.
for sure. No doubt.
We're speaking of women now, Paul.
If it's not about me, it doesn't matter.
I was waiting for the punchline. But like, you know, just this moment of transcendenceness.
So, transcendentation.
Exactly. Where they're going beyond that kind of stereotypical conflict, and Helena's being like, wait, this is stupid. And they have this like, just this moment of humanity, which just isn't about like, you know, that stupid gender politic fighting for the same boy shit. And it's really nice. I like it. I like that moment.
I think it goes back to your point of Shakespeare wrote complex women.
Yeah.
At a time when women weren't allowed to speak.
No. Literally.
Only a man could bring out that character in a complex way.
Right. But then there's also Hippolyta, who says like 6 words through the entire play. Like she shows up and says, "Hey, Mayor Daddy, wait 4 days," then fucks off for like 2 hours until she comes back and goes, "Boy, 'tis strange, my Theseus, what these lovers speak of," and then comments on the play, and then that's it.
Yeah. And it's interesting too though, because I think like she, like even the way she starts is powerful. Like, is it that she's quiet because she's being subdued, or is it that she's quiet because she doesn't need to speak?
Going back to our conversation, this of making interesting and in-depth choices as an actor, I have seen some very successful Hippolytas who have taken those 6 words that the character is given and brought an entire life to that character, where you get a bigger glimpse into what her and Mayor Daddy's relationship is, and what the future may hold for them as a couple, and her as the new Duchess, new Queen, new Duchess of Thebes, whatever, or of Athens. Excuse me. Did you think that this production did anything like that, or?
I think it started. I think like I agree with you. I've seen other versions where it's like been more successful, like where I felt like, oh shit, she's powerful, or like where I felt like, oh shit, like the Mayor Daddy, not Theseus, has all the power here, and like she's screwed. Like this is terrible. And I felt like this one kind of middled it a little bit. Like but it felt like it was leaning towards that kind of powerful thing that. You know me, I'm always interested in.
You guys are in the weeds.
I know,
Jesus.
But like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think we have to talk about these productions and these plays as they are, and as we're watching them, and whenever they're filmed, in whatever context, socially speaking, of however they're
societalistically.
However they're done, absolutely. But I think we would do ourselves a disservice and do your audience a disservice in 2020 and in the future if we don't react to them in a 2020 light. Because otherwise we're just doing the same play over and over again and seeing the same thing. And while Why the Chicken Crossed the Road to get to the other side is funny the first 10, 15 times you hear it, after about 30, 40, 50, 100 times.
We've seen it.
I'm just saying, like in 2020, I think the audience and we as a society ask more of the stories that are being told. And the story,
I mean, like, that's not contradicting the thing that I'm saying. I'm saying
no.
I'm saying this story is not about Hippolyta and Theseus, and you guys are in the weeds about Hippolyta's backstory, which you've already claimed has 6 lines in this fucking play. Right. I know it's I'm saying she's Boba Fett. She's like has a backstory within the entire universe and world of this play, but this play is already doing like so much shit with so many characters. And I mean, I wasn't saying you shouldn't talk about it, but I was rolling my eyes that you guys were fucking in the weeds.
Yeah.
And
we definitely started this as a discussion of this Julie Taymor's production.
So you're like, when should we talk about it? And I'm like, when you're doing your production meeting for the play you're putting on, not necessarily here.
Right. Fair enough. No, absolutely.
And I'm not trying to be a fucking dictator and shut you down, but I'm just making fun of you.
Yeah. I mean, it's logical what Oberon did. So.
Anyway,
Hippolyta.
And then Puck has the last little speech at the end, and he's like, fairies always fucking make their deals.
Is that what he says?
He says fairies are Lannisters, and they always pay their debts. He basically says that.
He kind of does.
He's like, otherwise you're calling Puck a liar, and Puck will break your legs.
He'll break your legs.
And then he's just, puts like a fucking bow on it, and he's just like, that's our play, and we're fairies, and they people in love, and it's over. I don't know what he says. He says something. What does he say?
Well, it's cool. I mean, it is the most. The entire play in most of it is written in really very
rhymiest of rhymy
absolutely
rhymes.
Like it's got a very clear-cut rhythm, all the rhyming couplets at the end of the lines, word rhymes with word,
yes.
The rhythm, blah blah blah. And I mean, it's like you say, they put a beautiful bow on it at the end. That entire 15-20 line speech, it's rhyming word at the end of a sentence, rhyming word with that, rhyming word.
It's very satisfying.
Oh, just beautiful, right? Bingo. You feel the rhythm of the speech. Give me your hands if we be friends. Robin shall restore amends. Lights down, and then the audience comes in and starts. It just feels like the applause is written almost into the rhythm of that speech.
Yeah. It's nice. It was definitely a fun play. I'm excited to see more now after you guys like enlightened me about all the possible motivations and like backstory and how it like ties into what I'm more interested now in Helena and Demetrius than I ever was.
Welcome.
I thought Demetrius was a fucking frat boy. I didn't give a shit, and I'm just like, but he's also in second place, so I always felt bad for him. But like now, I'm excited. I really want to see a production that like explores the other two things. That would give me so much more empathy and like catharsis for like how it ends if that was the case, because they had the longest shot. They had the biggest Hail Mary,
right?
As opposed to like fucking Hermia and Lysander, who they were already good. They were star-crossed lovers and they knew it and they wanted
set,
it. Like,
they're out.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and I think this production was overall a resounding success.
Oh, for sure. A-.
Yeah, entertaining, visually beautiful.
I'm not joking. A-.
No, I'm not joking either. A- is perfect.
Yeah, visually stunning. The production elements, I mean, are just jaw-dropping.
Oh my god.
The scope of it alone.
And they get it too. Like the spectacle is with purpose, which is great.
And the story's told. The story of these three worlds are told in that classic conflict, rising action, climax, falling action model. Like we see all of that, and I think this production knocked it out of the park. I would walk away from it going, what a fun evening.
I also, we talked about this after watching it, but the thing that I was feeling the whole time watching it was I was so jealous of the people seeing it live.
Yeah.
Like it, like less so than I felt like with Donmar Warehouse with Julius Caesar. I was like, I almost felt like I was getting a similar experience, but with this one, I was like, I just want to be there, man.
Right,
like,
it's a
the spectacle would hit you so hard being
to have
in that
those
room.
20 children singing that discordant
Absolutely.
song. It would hit differently.
Also, the play was like fucking. It basically scored. It was always music. It wasn't like just transitional music. It was like music like the whole time when somebody was talking. So it was a.
Did you guys like the music as our resident music people?
Loved it.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I'm always interested with music because Shakespeare never wrote the actual notes of a music, so it's always dependent on the production, how they want to do it. I'm always fascinated to see how they handle that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, not just the songs that I don't know if the kids played, if you wrote like the chorus of like the children fairy chorus lyrics or not, but I mean like there was under all the soliloquies and a lot of the conversations there was like a music score playing.
Yeah.
Which was dope.
It never stole focus. It only
agree.
was
Very
used to
subtle.
support
Dude,
the
I
moment.
have been in and seen a couple productions, especially of Shakespeare, that have underscored, and it's been so distracting.
Sure.
And it was not that way in this one. It was supportive. It was supportive. I felt like this with a lot of elements of this play. I feel like if I'd been in that play, I would have felt really like supported, like by the bamboo sticks, like creating an obstacle for me, by the music, like helping create this kind of channel through which I could, do my thing.
I imagine that's like the possible drawback, but also the effect of like human set pieces. You have an organic thing to play off of.
Totally.
So that's good.
Yeah.
But we graded it. We fucking did it. We talked about it.
I had a really good time. Thank you for coming over, Adam. This was awesome.
Thank you both
Adam
so
Wesley
much
Brown.
for doing this, for having me on. I'm such a fan of the show and what you guys are doing. This is so cool.
We love you, man.
Thanks, man. You got anything to plug? Where can people find you? Where can people follow you?
Oh, sure. So Paul and I actually are in a band together called Adam Wesley Brown and the Widowmakers.
They're really good, you guys.
He lets me play music.
I know I'm biased, but they're really good.
With him and his friends sometimes.
Let him play. My God, he's the best guitar player I've ever met in my life. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's if you ever want to check out some of our music, go to @Adam Wesley Brown on any of your social medias. You can find videos of us, and some of our music is up on SoundCloud, and let's see, there's Twitter and oh my God, I sound like a grandpa. There's the Twitters and the Gram Instas and the book face and all that jazz. And whenever the Corona madness hits, you can find me in the Chicago area, most likely doing some Shakespeare of some kind.
Yeah.
Word. Well, until next time.
I'm Chloe Baldwin.
I'm Paul Stafford.
And we hope the gap just got a little bit smaller.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. That you have but slumbered here, whilst these visions did appear.
Hey, this is Chloe. If you want to watch that production of Midsummer Night's Dream directed by Julie Taymor, you can find it on Broadway HD, and you can get a 7-day free trial. Check it out. Thanks for listening to Shakeshero. You can check out our website and email us your suggestions at shakeshero.com, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the handle Shakeshero. We're on Spotify and Apple Music, so please review, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.